righty, everybody. Welcome on into the Central Committee stream with your host, Mike from PA. Wow. We are live once again, and I got a song for your AM lineup. Send it on over. How is everybody doing today? Wowie zowie. Well, this is what fascist America looks like. This is, I think, one of the things that is frustrating about this moment is the way that a lot of liberals are reacting. The answer to the way they're reacting is, of course, they react this way. That's why they're a liberal. If they acted with any kind of grace or intelligence or self-awareness, they wouldn't be a liberal in the first place. Anybody who is ideologically a liberal is mentally kind of a worm. And instead of looking at what the United States is doing in Venezuela, what the United States is doing and threatening Denmark and Greenland, and saying, wow, this is exactly what the left said America was doing, and America's doing it. Instead of saying, maybe my analysis of structures is wrong. Maybe this is an example of where the left has correctly analyzed the way society functions, the way American neocolonialism functions, the way American and Western hegemony felt by the global South. They go, well, Kamala Harris wouldn't be doing this. I want you to understand that is, you know, people throw around terms like stupid, moronic, low IQ a lot. And I want you to understand that even saying that out loud, signal of profound stupidity and emotional immaturity. Why is that stupid? Because they're not really, the Democrats aren't even really condemning it. Many Democrats are supporting it. Kamala Harris's advisors supported the Iran nuclear strikes. The United States of America, I mean, most Democrats can't get out 5 words without condemning Maduro as a dictator. Now, I have a serious question for you, chat. Do you think calling Maduro a dictator legitimizes your left-wing position? I want you to understand that it does not. It just makes you look stupid and weak. Trump's full approach to foreign policy feels to me like a guy who read some bad leftist takes about how Western prosperity is all downstream of violent imperial exploitation and decided to use that as a playbook for growth. This is a liberal way of saying the left was right about everything, but I'm going to pretend that it's not true because, And the real reason why you know that the Democrats would have done, I mean, the Democrats might not have, here's the reality. The Democrats might not have had the balls to try to pull off the kidnapping, because that would be risky. And every Democrat thinks about how Jimmy Carter tried to do the special operations to rescue the hostages at the American embassy, and it failed. So every Democrat is worried. Every Democrat has been shitting their little shorts about becoming a Jimmy Carter. That's why they all do this, like, we've got to be strong. We've got to stand up to Iran. Because they're all afraid of Jimmy Cartering themselves, right? Like, that's the reality. So every single Democrat is like, well, I don't want to look weak. And once your foreign policy is, I don't want to look weak, you're a fucking loser. Chris Murphy outflanking Trump from the right. Didn't think it was possible to attack Trump from the right on this, but here we are. Very funny to imply Trump's oil friends won't get rich with Machado. Machado herself has made this central to her political project. This is literally all she talks about. They got rid of Maduro, but let Maduro's corrupt thugs stay in charge. Chris Murphy says they should have invaded. And I want you to understand, chat, that a lot of you dummies were like, I like Chris Murphy because he was based on this thing. And I said, this guy is a dumb fucking neocon. China is acting on dynamics 50 years in the future. American politicians are operating 50 years in the past. It's more like 100 in the past. Here's the thing that I would tell you is China is on an incredibly strong, however, it has to eventually oppose the United States, because China, if the rest of the world is supplicated, will not be able to defeat the rest of the world. As well run as China is, as many resources as China has, as many people and talented individuals China has, it cannot defeat the entire world. That's the reality. And that's why the Soviet Union fell. The Soviet Union fell because the socialist bloc was not weaker in population, in just baseline economic competition when the Cold War divisions happened. The Soviets got the war-torn areas of Eastern Europe that were bombed to fucking hell. whereas the United States got the mostly intact Western Europe. Okay, so that right there was huge. And the developing world was not strong enough yet to provide the Soviet Union with a growth area. And most of the people in the developing world that were in power were the former colonial administrators under the Western Empire. So they had a natural inclination to largely side with the West. I wrote something this weekend, and I think it kind of reflects where I'm at. Hold on, let me just pull it up. Oh yeah, here we go. Mexico and Brazil should develop nuclear weapons. And if you're in Latin America and you're not advocating for the development of nuclear weapons, you're a child. And this is where the kind of like pinko left, this is why we call it the compatible left, because the United States of America has basically said, we do not respect any country that doesn't have nukes. That includes European countries. The United States is threatening Denmark. Is the United Kingdom and France saying we're going to extend our nuclear umbrella over Denmark and defend European territorial integrity? Are they standing up to Trump and saying, shut the fuck up or else? If America tries to do something to Denmark, the French and the British are going to stand against them. The French and the British are going to unite their navies and stand against the United States. We're going to throw the United States military out of our borders. Are they saying that? And this is the reality, is that we have been degrading for a while. Without the threat of the Soviet Union, without the threat of an alternative, Western countries, social democracy, liberalism itself is crumbling. And it's crumbling because with the gaze of globalization, there is no longer any justification for one section of humanity to have so much more than another section of humanity, right? There's just no argument. iShowSpeed travels around Africa, and you can see that Africans are no different than Europeans or Americans. In fact, you could argue that Africa is more civilized. And with that reality is stripping away the justifications for the othering and exploitation of the global South. There's a lot of things that are in, and I think fundamentally, this is why I don't consider I think Xi Jinping has done a capable job of protecting Chinese sovereignty. China has built a lot of its international prestige through its rigid and alignment with international institutions that the United States is dynamiting right now. Here in China, people are seeing China as walking on a path that defines a different approach based on international laws, not rules-based order. As Chinese FM Wang Yi has stated, China, as a civilization of 5,000 years, wants and would be a foundation of stability and development. But, and it is a big but, if the U.S. is so deeply in love with violence that eventually they will leave China no room to be reasonable with it, which would be very bad ending for many. I mean, Brazilian right-wingers would be equally willing to sell themselves in the country of the U.S., nukes or not. There's been quite a lot of resentment of Lula and the left as a whole due to the many corruption scandals during his second term. They're just bullshit scandals. Well, I mean, they're just bullshit scandals. Bolsonaro is even more corrupt than anything that Lula could be involved with. And Lula, ladies and gentlemen, never had the Congress. Do you think all these moves, locking down Western Hemisphere, friend or nearshoring, threatening Greenland, are in line with the secret belief among our ruling elites that climate change is real? Of course. It's eco-fascism. We've been predicting that this would happen. I mean, I predicted this would happen in 2019. I said, oh my God. I mean, I'm sure you could find clips of me saying this, but here's what I've been saying for the last 7 years. As climate change is no longer deniable and the effects of climate change are felt, I've been talking about the 1 billion refugees. Here, let's just search my shit. Billion refugees. Okay. Let me. Oh God, I have to put quotes. The search is so fucking garbage. Because I've definitely tweeted about this. God, I hate this fucking website. This website is such fucking trash. I type billion too much. Oh fuck. God damn it. Let me just go for refugees. Climate refugees. There you go. That's what it'll be. What the fuck? Okay. That's not true. I've definitely tweeted about that too. Okay. The Democratic elite blaming the consequences of the exact policies they recommend for their defeat is galling. Blockades in Cuba and Venezuela sent millions of refugees to the border. Refusal to rein in corporate price gouging during and after the pandemic. I mean, I got you, King. Did you find it? See, preventing... What the fuck? Here you go. Why is the search on Twitter such garbage? Look at the search on Twitter. I literally put climate refugees, and it's right there. Twitter is so fucking broken. It's unbelievable. See, preventing 3 degrees centigrade warming would mean that we need to clamp down on Obama and his billionaire friends' luxury yachting and private jet trips. Can't have that. 1 billion climate refugees instead. I even said billion refugees. They didn't put it. Actually insane. I'm beginning to think 0 likes. Oh, this must be a true banger. No likes equals whatever. The less likes I get on a post, the more correct it is. UN expects 1 billion climate change refugees by 2050. We are probably too late to avoid absolutely catastrophic climate change, even with transformative policies. With the leaders the Devs have in the House and Senate, nothing will get done. May 5th, 2019. Can nations buy nukes secretly? This is before I ever streamed, chat. This is before my first stream. I remember Biden putting out a white paper stating the intent to build a fascist anti-immigrant policy in response to projected climate refugees. Yes. Trump has now threatened Cuba, Mexico, Colombia, Greenland, and Iran. Which of these do you think will actually strike? I mean, he already struck Iran. Basically, what's going to happen, I'll tell you, chat. Until it looks like an unequivocal failure, Trump is going to keep doing shit. Until something happens that makes him look bad, he's going to keep doing more and more shit. Until a bunch of American service members die in a failed attempt, he's going to keep doing more and more shit. I've also said the American Anschluss is Canada. You know, like... That's how you know we're in deep shit. Kind of wild he just keeps getting away with it, and we'll have to wait until the fuck up is large enough. Again, it's wild. Yeah. The 3 a.m. tweet, that's insane. I don't know what was going on there. The empire will go to war to enhance its ego. I mean, of course. Here's the reality. Either you understand that we need a left that is hard-hearted. Oh, yeah, that would be 6 a.m. chat. That would be 6:30 a.m. That makes more sense. That was 6:30 a.m. This would be 7:26 a.m. Pacific. I was in Pennsylvania at the time, so it would have been 6:30. Europe is beholden. China is not interested. The global south is not unified. Correct. And I think the main thing that can anybody argue against China taking Taiwan by force? Really, the only argument we have now is might makes right. If China could do it, then they are allowed to do it. That's it. And really, the only thing stopping China from doing anything is the ability of American propaganda to damage their global reputation. That's the other factor that I think needs to be said. I think what needs to be said is that the American media is also an enemy of humanity, and people need to start suffering consequences. And it really is hard to... It really is, much more than that. People need to be afraid to advocate for committing war crimes. I mean, Tim Walz was just forced to drop out because the slop tuber made a video about him.
Ahead of his visit to China, President of the Republic of Korea, Lee Jae-myung, sat down with Leaders Talk for an exclusive interview at the Blue House. Talking about his expectations for his first visit to China since taking office, he says,
I'm convinced that through my upcoming visit to China and President Xi's recent visit are okay. Relations between our two countries will take a decisive step forward.
On the anticipated meeting with President Xi, he says,
I consider Xi a highly capable leader with a broad vision.
When diplomatic
Here's the problem. The problem is that China, you really need to understand that there is no independent Korean political party. The CIA has South Korea in a fucking chokehold. The United States has like the right to intervene in South Korea's internal affairs. When you say he has them in a chokehold, could you explain what that practically means? It means that the CIA has so many agents in South Korea that the Koreans don't have the ability to independently exercise foreign policy or domestic policy. It means that the Republic of Korea is largely occupied and is a puppet state. It means that, like Japan, Korea doesn't really have independence and sovereignty over its own territory. The United States is really sovereign over those territories, and any political activity that does take place is superintended by the United States, and therefore the Overton window in Korea and Japan is highly regulated by the United States. I would say pretty much every developed country is an American puppet. There isn't an independent country. Canada is basically part of the US, but they can't vote.
Hi, I'm Steve Clemens, and I have a question. With U.S. strategy increasingly looking inward, does China see a window of opportunity to expand its presence in Asia and across the world? Let's get to the bottom line. On any given day in Washington, you can hear two polar opposite positions. The first is that China is a threat, and that it's going to eclipse the United States in global trade and in artificial intelligence and take over Taiwan sooner rather than later. The second is that the Trump administration is looking for ways to improve or stabilize relations with Beijing, not just on trade and tariffs. So which one is it? And does China see the West's ambivalence as an opportunity?
So I want to say that right now, if you are somebody who is trying to remain neutral between the United States and China, the only way you could do that is if you have a Chinese military base. And I think the major problem for Venezuela is that they didn't have Chinese military bases. I think the problem with Cuba is that they don't have Chinese military bases. And until China starts developing, and this is ultimately the world that the United States has created. Instead of us having a world system of international law and rule of law and a Westphalian respect of sovereignty or whatever the fuck liberal claptrap they claim exists, the rules-based international order, we have a war of all against all. And right now, the United States and its lapdogs, Bigfoot around the world, stealing resources openly and acting as pirates and thieves. So either you are capable of stopping the United States or you're playing tribute to the United States. Those are the only answers. The only Chinese military base is in Djibouti.
Opportunity to expand
But I don't
further.
mean your ass.
Welcome to this special edition of the show, coming to you from the Doha Forum in Qatar, where we're talking with Victor Gao, Professor of International Relations at Soochow University, and he's Vice President of the Center for China and Globalization in Beijing. Victor, thank you so much for joining us here again at the Doha Forum.
It's a great
We were
pleasure.
together 1 year ago. It was a great show and a great discussion.
Thank you.
And at that time, we were right on the verge of Donald Trump possibly, being elected, and you said China is not afraid of Donald Trump. What's happened in the last year? Is China still not afraid of Donald Trump? Do you see opportunities in Donald Trump, or do you see disaster?
President Donald Trump is the President of the United States of America and the Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. military. In that capacity, President Trump commands my highest respect. And we may have some differences, but the differences don't count in dealing with the President of the United States. Now, I would say after he reassumed the leadership role in the United States on January the 20th, 2025, he played his role in different ways, causing different impact on the world, especially as far as China is concerned. The tariff war he launched against China as well as against the rest of the world most likely will prove to be the wrong war for him to launch because it does not serve any constructive purpose. I hope the tariff war will be brought to an end very quickly, and President Trump and his team can devote their resources on other things which truly matter. For example, bringing manufacturing jobs back to the United States, which I will completely, wholeheartedly support. And China can really make itself of great use to the United States if the United States really decides to do that.
This is something that I talk about a lot, but the United States lost 9 million union manufacturing jobs from globalism. At the same time, China created 100 million manufacturing jobs. The United States could get those manufacturing jobs back and China still be up 90 million jobs. Okay. So reality is that China did not steal your job. The capitalists did. China created new jobs for their people. They didn't just take America's manufacturing jobs wholeheartedly. They created tens of millions of new ones. That's why when Barack Obama would walk around the country going, the jobs aren't coming back. Learn to code. Remember that? Remember learn to code? If you only had a STEM degree, chat. If you only had a STEM degree, well, guess what? Now STEM degrees can't find jobs. So the entire liberal ethos of, oh, it's personal responsibility and blah-bitty, blah-bitty, blah-bitty blue, it's all bullshit. It's about the distribution of wealth and resources. Our economy, world economy produces wealth. Who gets it? Under Barack Obama and Donald Trump, the answer is the rich. The already rich. The capitalist class. My English degree is worth more than STEM degrees now? Yeah, because guess what? The idea that college should just be a job training center. How do you know what job's going to be there? How do you know what job is going to be there? Because it was in demand 5 years ago? You're asking people to take on debt that they can't discharge in bankruptcy on the hope that they get a job in their field. And then if they don't, you just tell them to die. I learned to code, I got a CS degree, and now I work at a factory in Florida. I have student debt. Hashtag American dream.
By law, they were required. By law, by law, by law. They were supposed to do this by law. They broke the law. Law. The law doesn't fucking exist. The law doesn't fucking exist in America, everybody. Every single member of the government is a criminal! And we keep expecting the criminals to hold the other criminals accountable. When the fucking dictator in charge can ignore the courts, law doesn't exist. Every system of checks and balances we had fails because nobody's being held accountable. Law doesn't exist. Stop screaming about what is legally required. Nobody fucking cares. The only way this stops is if the people listen to the Constitution and overthrow tyranny. Revolution! To every single...
I've been saying this for a long time, Chad. I've been saying this for a long time, is that laws only exist if you are willing to enforce it. And this is what has been lost, is that you and I don't have the institutions that are ready to enforce laws. They're not scared anymore. 70 years ago, the elites started to do shit that everybody didn't like. We would go out on the street and we'd start wrecking shit. This is what happened. How do you think unions became big in this country? You think it was from us being nice? Let me talk about Bethlehem Steel.
It's history's headlines.
This is what it was like in 1941 in Pennsylvania when workers got pissed that they weren't getting paid enough.
Of 1941 at Bethlehem Steel.
It wasn't the first strike, and it wouldn't be the last, but it was memorable for many reasons.
And now Pathé News brings you the pictures of the actual riot at plant number 9. Here are strike sympathizers attempting to get at those inside the plant who fought sit-down strikers.
It got ugly in Michigan in 1936 and 37 when auto workers there went on strike against General Motors. The labor dispute made national headlines. Just a few years later, it would be Bethlehem Steel in the spotlight when workers there organized a strike of their own.
It began on March 24th of 1941. Almost from the first was a violent strike.
It was not the first strike at Bethlehem Steel Mills. Workers had walked out in 1910 and again in 1919. But by 1941, they were still asking for better working conditions, higher wages, and union representation. The Steelworkers Organizing Committee called the strike, and by 11 p.m. that first night, there were some 2,500 strikers, revelers, and women and children at the company's main gate.
The Bethlehem Police Force and the state police were called in to break up the strike. Some of them were very good about it, some of them were not.
The peaceful picket turned violent after tear gas was lobbed into the crowd. Cars were overturned, windows smashed. The governor declared a state of emergency in Bethlehem. State and federal mediators were brought in to help bridge the gap between the workers and Bethlehem Steel's CEO.
Eugene Grace realized that the best thing for him to do was to at least negotiate or begin the process of negotiation.
On March...
Now, why did they realize that, chat? It's because the steelworkers, your grandparents, were violent. That's the reality. That's the fucking reality. When they tear gassed them, they didn't go, oh God, tear gas. Everybody, guys, everybody, self-care, everybody take care of yourself. What happened in Bethlehem is they said, oh, you're tear gassing? Destroy everything. Smash every window. Fight these motherfuckers. And then they were like, maybe we should negotiate with this union. It's starting to get a little bit tough out here. That's why they were able to have the Great Compression and the good wages and wages rising with productivity, is because they were scared. And then they were like, maybe we should raise the wages a bit. I don't want to die. Right now, does Elon Musk look like he's scared? Does Elon Musk look like he's scared of Tesla manufacturing workers showing up at his door? I don't think he does. Do the Ellisons look scared that they're going to censor TikTok? Do they look scared that they might piss off the wrong group of people? I don't think they are. The problem we have in America is that too many of you are, quite frankly, cucked. You were trained by propaganda that the civil rights movement was peaceful. You were trained by propaganda that, you know, if I just vote for Democrats, everything will work out. If I just vote for AOC, everything will work out. It's not that AOC is to blame. It's that you have disempowered yourself and you've put it on a politician, and then you sit there like judging history. You need AOC elected so that when you go on strike, you have somebody there to say you should negotiate with these guys. I don't have control of them. Violence is never the answer. Remember how people always say that? What do you think it was peaceful to go kidnap Maduro? Maduro failed because he was weak. I don't tell you the stories of American imperialism to tell you that the strategy that we should be pursuing is peaceful protest. I'm telling you that the United States of America has its power because it is violent. Open Presence, thank you so much for the 100 gifted subs. I appreciate you. You know that. I hope you know that. I just want to keep talking about what I'm saying without stopping to do Twitch shit. I had a debate with this guy, Sock Dunn Left, about how America's politics is an oligarchy, because whether a policy are passed or not has no bearing on how popular it is. If a policy has 100% support of the American people, it passes about 30% of the time. If it has 0% of the American support of the American people, it passes 30% of the time. The only thing that matters is the opinion of economic elites. And the higher the opinion of the policy by the economically elites, the higher likelihood that it will be passed, nearing unanimous likelihood, or 100% likelihood. If it is, if 90% of rich people support something, it passes like 80-some% of the time. This is an article from today. Supreme Court increasingly favors the rich. Economists say a new study found that the court's Republican appointees voted for the wealthier side in cases 70% of the time in 2022, up from 45% in 1953. Sorry, this is from a couple years ago. Oh, no, this is from today. Sorry, this is from today. I thought so. Supreme Court justices take two oaths. First, required of all federal officials, is to promise to support the Constitution. The second, a judicial oath, is more specific. It requires them, among other things, to do equal right to the poor and to the rich. A new study being released on Monday from economists at Yale and Columbia contends that the Supreme Court has recent decades fallen short of that vow. The study, called Ruling for the Rich, concludes that the wealthy have the wind at their backs before the justices, and that a good way to guess the outcome of a case is to follow the money. How many of you are okay with this? Now, personally, I got to be honest with you, chat. I have been right about this for years, and it sucks because I know it's annoying to hear me say I've been right, but it's just so fucking annoying and frustrating to have said this shit for fucking years. And so, since I'm right about this, how about we listen to some of my solutions? You know what the peaceful, moderate solution is? Packing the Supreme Court by adding at least 5 new radical left-wing judges. That's the minimum. That's the most moderate position. That's the most reformist position. That's the minimum. Anything short of that is surrender. And I don't say that now, if you're sitting here and you're listening to me for the first time and you're like, wow, that's a pretty radical position, you're part of the problem. I want you to feel under attack because you haven't thought about this at all. You haven't studied at all. And you're uncomfortable because I said we should expand the Supreme Court, something that's happened 15 times in American history. Something that has happened. You know, there's been more judges than 9 Supreme Court judges, right? You know that 9 isn't the most we've ever had. We've had more than 9 judges before, or justices before. That's the funny part. What I'm describing is not even radical. And even things that have precedent, things that have been done before, liberals shy away from. How could you be about progress if you're afraid to do things that have already been done in our history? How are you so weak? How are you so pathetic? The answer is because they're not weak. They're strong in defense of the rich. In 1963, the U.S. Supreme Court was expanded to 10 justices. They used to have 1 justice for every circuit. We currently have 13 circuits and only 9 Supreme Court judges. Did I say 1963? Sorry, 1863. I misspoke. And I just bring this up because it's like, I have to have conversations with liberals. And I want you to understand that most of the time you're having a conversation with a liberal, they're not actually they're an automaton. Conservatives are not wrong. They're just automatons as well. They are not actually able to reckon with what you're saying. And I think this is part of the problem with social media noise is people are not actually making arguments that they are caring to listen to. They're not thinking through their positions. They're not developing their own positions. They're just copying what the party or group they identify with. There are actually very few people in politics that even know how to form an opinion. And that's the thing that has tripped me up over the years. I think that most of the people I'm talking to are capable of forming their own opinions. They are not. They are playing a socially oriented game. And my autism has blocked me, or my self-diagnosed autism has blocked me from seeing that. They are only there to tell you what they've been told. The moment you start to ask people to think for themselves, they start to short fucking circuit.
Where do you think the tariff war is now?
Despite of all this pressure and the vicissitudes, the total China-U.S. trade volume actually is still increasing. And the export amount from China to the United States as a percentage of China's total export to the world is decreasing rapidly. Right now, it's about 13% compared with the peak at about 25%. That means China is exploring other markets in other parts of the world.
Those bombs are protecting you from what? The United States of America has created an environment where the only thing that's going to credibly hold China back is our military. Is that right? They're going to be militarily stronger than us. So basically, on our way out as an empire, we've detonated all of the international institutions, and we've tried to make things a might makes right world, right as we're relatively weaker than ever to China. Right as China's powers are growing exponentially, we're making it might makes right. I literally had to explain to my dad how ICE isn't going after criminals, and he said, but they said it's just the criminals, like drug dealers. Like, is a granny a drug dealer? They've said they could go after anybody who looks brown. There was a Supreme Court case that said ICE can arrest anybody who looks brown based on their race and force them to prove they're an American. That is the current law in America. It doesn't matter if you're a citizen or an immigrant, legal or illegal. The ICE has the right to detain you and try to make you prove that you're an American. But if they claim that you're an immigrant, you don't have due process, which means you don't have the opportunity to prove your shit. And even if you do have your documents, they could say those documents are fake and then deport you. So right now, nobody has any rights. I have a friend that tried to justify Maduro's kidnapping by bringing up the estimation of the number of deaths during Maduro's regime and comparing that to 80 or so reported deaths from 2 days ago. It's a level of solipsism that's hard to break through. It's not solipsism. You're thinking of sophistry. The reason why there's been any deaths in Venezuela is because the United States has put them under a ruinous blockade. They've made it illegal for countries to trade with Venezuela. Venezuela's economy was dependent upon selling natural resources to the world. So when you deny, how well do you think Saudi Arabia's economy would do if we stopped them from selling oil? If the United States surrounded Saudi Arabia with a ring of steel and said nobody could buy oil from Saudi Arabia, how do you think Saudi Arabia's economy would do? How do you think Texas' economy would do if we surrounded Texas with tanks and said, Texas, you're not allowed to sell oil to anybody? That is the so it's just baby shit. It's baby shit. They destroyed Venezuela. They destroyed Venezuela because they didn't want any country to say, hey, we should get a fair deal for selling our resources. And even under decades of sanctions, did Venezuela's government fall? No. Did the Venezuelan people overthrow it? No. It required America, and by the way, has the regime even fallen? I mean, all that's happened is they managed to kidnap Maduro, but did the party actually, did the Venezuelans, I mean, even seeing American aircraft carriers out in the oceans bombing their capital, where is the riots? Where's the uprising? If everybody wants to get rid of the quote regime, where is it? Where's the fucking uprising? It's been days. Now, maybe it'll happen. Because I'm sure there's a segment of the population that wants to steal the resources and sell them to, like, you know what I mean? Like, set up the same kind of neo-colonial structure that exists all over the world where 5 to 10% of society steals all the country's wealth for foreigners and keeps 90% of the people in pure poverty. That's the way that the American ally model usually works. You have American aircraft carriers offshore. You have the president saying, we want that oil. Trillions of dollars at the beck and call of the supposed opposition. Where the fuck is it? Where the fuck is it?
A substitute for whatever loss of its export to the United States. However, I think weaponizing tariff is the wrong thing to do because you really undermine free trade. And for the United States to defend free trade is absolutely the most important thing. And for China to defend free trade while the United States wants to wreck the free trade is becoming the megatrend of the world. China now is the standard bearer of defending free trade. I hope the United States will overcome whatever problems it has and again defend free trade together with China.
I think a lot of people who are critics of China or critics of this situation that the United States and China find itself believe that China, basically to use a term you did, weaponized supply chains, weaponized strategic predatory targeting of industries. You know, what they're basically arguing is that China created a strategy, pursued it, and tried on its own to decrease its own dependencies on the rest of the world and has been remarkably successful. And that in EVs and batteries and critical materials, China has an extraordinary stranglehold, if you will, upwards of 80 and 90% market share that now the United States and even Europe are trying to catch up with. So to some degree, is China, and is this situation a victim of China's success at being so good at being able to strategically target industries it wanted to dominate and to be in, and now that's created a fear that that free trade system just didn't work out right in terms of balance?
Well, allow me to put EV car industry in historical perspective. Around 2012, when China decided to really put all the resources in developing this new sector, at that time it was not certain.
I feel like "where is the uprising" is a bad rhetorical line when Americans can't get off their couch themselves. If China, okay, I just want to, Seattle surf, I just want to explain something to you. If China had air superiority over Los Angeles, California, you don't think that there might be an uprising? If President Xi was saying, "We need socialists to seize the city hall of Los Angeles," and the American military was prostrate, you don't think there would be an uprising? Hypothetically.
At all that electric vehicle industry will be a splashing success, because at that time,
let's just say I disagree with you, but that's fine.
Lots of uncertainties in terms of the technology.
You have Americans confronting ICE right now with Donald Trump as president and with fucking Palantir surveilling us all.
In terms of the supply chain.
Well, I remember I drove
cetera.
one of the first BYD vehicles in like 1997.
Really? Okay.
It was one of the test sites, and I knew it was going to be big.
Well, you are a visionary. You were a visionary then, and hopefully you will remain very optimistic about this industry. But China really took a big bet. Why? Because China wants to do the right thing to mitigate the impact of the climate change and the CO2 emission, etc. China wants to cut down its dependence on imported oil, crude oil. That's the driver for China's exploration of this EV car revolution. And China came up with an overarching view about how this industry should be done and what should be the prospect and how the supply chain should be structured or restructured. So you can say China has the vision and has the wisdom and has the courage to place such a big bet on the EV car industry, which in China's belief will really reduce the dependence on fossil fuel, which is what China really cares about. Now China turns out to be right. Other countries placed similar bets. For example, Japan placed a big bet on hydrogen car, which didn't materialize. So you cannot blame China for being visionary as well as very wise in placing the bet. And now China's production of EV cars already succeeded China's production of fossil fuel cars. And China's goal is to the EV car production up to about 100% of all the vehicles produced in China.
Let me ask you a big question, Victor, and I ask it of many military leaders, foreign policy leaders, and political leaders in the United States. Why does it matter so deeply who wins the AI race?
Well, I think AI revolution is not only with us, it is going to shape and change everything we do as individuals, as families, as cultures, as civilizations, you name it. And I think several things stand out very sharply to me. First of all, AI is not American intelligence. Most people don't know that or don't want to figure that out. Secondly,
What do you mean by that?
well, I think the way the Americans are building up their AI dominance is kind of in the belief that they should turn AI into American intelligence, which is not true. Secondly,
So basically what he's saying is America sees AI as a way of manipulating people like the CIA. That's what he's trying to say. He's saying that AI is basically just American intelligence agency trying to manipulate people and control people. That's what he's saying. He's saying, no, that's not what AI is for.
for any country to really achieve AI dominance will be a recipe of great disaster for
Rosalux, I know.
humankind. Because
Even China?
Well, China is capitalist. No, it's not. Why do you think the United States is aggressive against China? Because they're capitalists? Because they're just so hunky-dory? It's because they're not capitalists. It's because they're reining in finance capital. You know what country doesn't have a drug problem? China. Why doesn't China have a drug problem? I'll give you a hint. They caught all the CIA agents. You kill them? You kill American intelligence officers? There's no drug problem. This is not a theory. It's a fact. Inside the Taliban's war on drugs, opium poppy crops slashed. Within a matter of minutes, Abdul and a dozen other men raised the poppy Abdul and a dozen other men raised the poppy crop, which covered the small field. Then the armed men, all wearing a shalwar kameez, a traditional Afghan tunic with loose-fitting trousers, most with long beards and some cool-lined eyes, pile in the back of a pickup truck and move on to the next farm. The men belong to the Taliban anti-narcotics unit in eastern Nangarhar province of Afghanistan, and we've been given rare access to join them on one of their patrols to eradicate poppy farming. Less than 2 years ago, the men were insurgent farmers, part of a war to seize control of the country. Now they've won and are on the ruling side, enforcing the orders of their leader. In April 2022, Taliban Supreme Leader Habibatullah Akhundzada decreed that cultivation of the poppy, from which opium, the key ingredient for the drug heroin, can be extracted, was strictly prohibited. A Taliban spokesperson told the BBC that they imposed the ban because of the harmful effects of opium, which is taken from the poppy seed capsules, and because it goes against their religious belief. Afghanistan used to produce 80% of the world's opium. Heroin made from Afghan opium made up 95% of the market in Europe. BBC has now traveled in Afghanistan and used satellite analysis to examine the effects of the direct action on opium poppy cultivation. The Taliban leaders appear to have been more successful cracking down on cultivation than anyone ever has. We found a huge fall in poppy growth in major opium-producing provinces, with one expert saying annual cultivation could be down 80% on last year. Less profitable wheat crops have supplanted poppies in fields, and many farmers saying they are suffering guys, they eradicated heroin, but at what cost? Now, I have a serious question for all of my liberal and conservative friends. Do you think the United States of America is less competent than the Taliban at driving around and looking around and seeing where poppies are? If you're saying yes, you're being stupid. And you need to slap yourself in the face. You're actually being stupid as fuck, and you're embarrassing yourself if you say yes. The United States of America had complete satellite coverage of Afghanistan. They knew exactly where the poppies were. They let them grow because the Afghan government was full of corrupt narco traffickers, and we were allied with them. They were also pedophiles, and that's not an exaggeration. That's a fact. The United States of America was on behalf of pedophile narco traffickers. That's why we lost to the Taliban, because the Afghan people saw how evil our puppets were and they joined the Taliban. There is no drug problem in China because they killed the CIA agents. They don't have a drug problem. The CIA gets pushed out of Afghanistan. The US military gets pushed out of Afghanistan. Heroin ends. That's why we have so much fentanyl, chat, because with the United States doesn't currently control any major opium producing regions, so we can't produce heroin. So we need to synthesize it. So the last place it's being synthesized is American aligned narco trafficking rings in Mexico, mostly run by former special operations officers. Oh, you don't know that? There's a book that recently came out about by Matt Karp. I recommend you all read it. He just published a book called I think it was Matt, right? Or was it somebody else? Maybe it was a different. Oh no, it wasn't Matt. Who was it? It was Seth. Was it Seth? Seth Karp? Seth Harp. Okay, there it is. That's who I was looking for. Thank you. It was Seth Harp. Sorry. The Matt Carps, the same fucking name with one letter. You know what I mean. The Fort Bragg cartel. Thank you. That's who I was looking for. Seth Harp. Jesus Christ. That's the real cartel. This is where our drugs really come from. Hey, Ness. How you doing? Chat, Ness and I played a lot of Arc Raiders last night until our brains rotted. And then we played with Will. And I think I needed Will. Ness was too good for me, chat. Like, the problem is, like, Will just knows how to be... He knows how to play. Like Ness just puts me in too many fights too fast, you know? And we just go too... We just end up dying after the 5th fight. Will puts me in... Oh, sorry. Ness puts me in too many fights. Will... He just knows how to... He knows how to play, you know, with me. Ness is a fucking monster. Yeah, he is. He's insane. He's too good. Put you in the doghouse. Yeah. Hey, Ness, I want you to apologize to Vio right now. I didn't know she was ready to play, you fucking idiot. I'm gonna slap you. I kept rage readying up. I kept rage readying up because I was tilted. We both need to. We both need to. Apparently she waited for like a half an hour. Hell. Anyway, okay. Is Art good? Yes. Have I killed a matriarch? Yeah, they're not. Ness and I can kill them in 5 seconds. Anyway, chat, you should follow Nessawa for the gaming. Thank you for the shout out. Do a formal shout out. Maybe we'll play again at some point. Unk Raiders, honestly, that game is really good. I didn't know they were there. Old school hype, but yeah, that sucks. That actually sucks. I'm sad. What games have I been playing lately? The 2 games that I've been playing lately, 2 of my favorite games of all time, Project Zomboid and Arc Raiders. I don't know why, but they just hit for me. Zomboid is base. Someone made a really nice menswear mod for it. That's funny. Do I mods PZ? Well, they just dropped a new patch, so I haven't modded anything because why would you? There's so much new content. Mike, let's duo in Rivals. I can carry. I'm a Celestial tank main. Vio is a Celestial support. So do you want a trio? Vio will be the Celestial support. You'll be the Celestial tank, and then you can carry my platinum ass or gold ass. Nice. Mike, we have to go back into Afghanistan. Okay, sorry for getting distracted. Anyway, everybody should follow Ness. Ness is where the cool people game. Legitimately, he's good. I need to learn how to play on his level, or at least instead of just bull rushing everything, start playing like I do when I'm solo. A little bit more thoughtful, a little bit more positional. I love Zomboid, but I only have a few hours in it because I have no friends who play it. It's pretty hard until you figure out the gameplay loop. Then it's fucking easy. Let's keep going. What was I saying? All right, yeah. The reason why China doesn't have any drugs is because they killed the CIA agents. Just like how Afghanistan now has no drugs because they pushed out the American troops and puppets. And we can get into this more. Heroin largely started from the KMT, which is the government of Taiwan. The government of Taiwan was the major producer of heroin during the Vietnam War. I know people don't understand that. Actually, the government of Taiwan is why if you have a relative who died of a heroin overdose or fentanyl overdose, Taiwan killed your relative. Do you think we should support Taiwan now? The Golden Triangle is a large mountainous region of approximately 200,000 kilometers squared in northwest Myanmar, northern Thailand, and northern Laos. This is where the KMT, after they were defeated by the communists in China, they moved their heroin operations there. The Golden Triangle has been one of the largest opium producing areas of the world since the 1950s. Most of the world's heroin came from the Golden Triangle until the early 21st century when opium production in Afghanistan increased. Where the CIA was to where the CIA is. Now, people will tell you that you should ignore this. Chinese Taipei, so true. Well, Americans know it as Taiwan, so I'm trying to make it very clear what I'm talking about. Myanmar was the world's second largest source of opium after Afghanistan up till 2022, producing 25% of the world's opium. In the late 1940s, as the Chinese Communist Party gained power, it ordered 10 million addicts into compulsory treatment, had dealers executed, and opium-producing regions planted with new crops. Consequently, opium production shifted south of the Chinese border into the Golden Triangle region. Small-scale opium production in Myanmar dated back to the Konbaung dynasty in 1750, chiefly for the consumption of foreigners. The Chinese troops of the Kuomintang in Burma were in effect the forebears of the private narcotic armies operating in the Golden Triangle. The Kuomintang are the Chinese capitalist right-wingers that America supports. In 1949, thousands of the defeated Kuomintang troops crossed over the border from the Yunnan province into Burma, a nation with a weak government, and the Kuomintang seized control of the border regions of Burma. Almost all of the KMT opium was sent south to Thailand. The KMT-controlled territories made up Burma's major opium-producing region, and the shift in KMT policy allowed them to expand their control of the region's opium trade. Furthermore, Communist China's eradication of illicit opium cultivation in Yunnan by the early 1950s effectively handed the opium monopoly to the KMT army and the Shan state. The main consumers of the drug were local ethnic Chinese and those on the border of in Yunnan and the rest of Southeast Asia that coerced the local villagers with recruits, food, and money, and extracted a heavy tax on the opium farmers. This forced the farmers to increase their production to make ends meet. One American missionary to the Luo people of the Kantong state testified that the KMT tortured the Luo for failing to comply with their regulation. Do you understand? After hearing about African-American soldiers serving in the Vietnam War becoming addicted to heroin while on rest and recuperation in Thailand, American drug lord Frank Lucas traveled to Bangkok in the early 70s to attempt to set up a new trafficking route with his associate Ike Atkinson. After Lucas visited the Golden Triangle region and made an initial purchase of 132 kilograms of uncut heroin from the remnants of Chiang Kai-shek's defeated Kuomintang army for the price of $4,200 per kilogram, compared to $50,000 each that the New York Mafia charged, Atkinson used his contacts within the U.S. military to smuggle the narcotics via the U.S. Air Force planes back to the eastern United States. It was then collected, cut to 10% purity, repackaged, and distributed on the streets of Harlem by dealers controlled by Lucas for a vast profit. So I don't know what else to say. I don't know what else to tell you. They made a fucking movie about it. You know, they'll be like, oh my God, I can't believe the Mexican cartels are making the drug. It's like, have you told the CIA to stop maybe selling drugs to America's poor? Have you said maybe stop allying with drug traffickers to kill hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Americans? Have you considered that maybe America is the source of the world's problems? And I think a lot of people, when I say this stuff, it's like, oh my God, what do you do with this information? How do you realize that America is not really controlled by your politicians? It's controlled by a capitalist class and their intelligence agency lackeys. At the Gestapo won World War II through the CIA. It is what it is. There's America before 1945 and America after 1945. And we haven't been in control of our own country.
Captain? Yeah. Richie Robbins, Essex County. I know you're expecting us. Is that warrant? You're looking on the plane. Wait. Scotty, stop all these soldiers. Check their bags. Every one of them.
No knock warrant. Go ahead, start upstairs.
Where are they going?
Step in, sweetie. Ma'am, just sit down.
What is this?
Whoa. All this stops. Hey. Nothing leaves this area, all right? Slow down with this. All right, stop these trucks.
Hold on.
Everything off the walls. Just pull it all down.
Everything's a monster,
All right?
Rich. What is this?
Nothing leaves this area until we've checked it. All right, Captain? Nothing. We've got to take the plane out. We've got to look at the trucks. Every man here gets searched. Read the warrant, sir.
Your husband's illustrious career is over. Now the
It's
feds
called
are gonna
American
come in,
Gangster.
They're gonna take everything. I mean, they're gonna take it all. But not before I get my gratuity. So where's the money?
What are you talking about? What money?
What am I talking about? What money? The getaway money that Frank and every other gangster keeps in his house.
If you leave now, there's a chance Frank might not kill you.
Shut up! Sit down! Sit down!
This is a great film, chat. But it's also part of the CIA's formal. This is their version. It's like, no. We had nothing to do with it. It's just every single step of the way was coming from a CIA aligned group and the Kuomintang through American planes. Oh, we had nothing. It was this guy, Frank Lucas. We had nothing to do with it. Just so happens that heroin pops up wherever CIA agents are.
And best en route to their final resting places.
You guys, take this coffin down.
Open it. I'm not doing that.
Great fucking dog, huh? Hey.
You stop this right now.
My warrant gives me permission to examine this plane. Plane and its cargo.
Well, you don't have my permission.
I don't need it, Captain.
Hey, easy. Come on, hey, easy.
Right. Move out of the way.
This is how you know it's propaganda. Okay, I'm like, they would have already shot this dog. What's taking so long?
Damn.
There it is.
That's enough.
Stay with these coffins. Do not let them out of your sight.
Got it. Okay. Hey, help me out with this.
Okay, this scene, like this part of the scene, we don't really care. It's, you know, corrupt cops are trying to steal the money during the bust, etc. The premise of the movie is there's good cops out there.
That was a military transport plane. If there was heroin on board, then someone in the military would have to be involved, which means that even as it fights a war that's claimed 50,000 American lives, the military is smuggling narcotics. That is how this event today will be interpreted. That someone employed by this office believes that the United States Army is in the drug trafficking business and is trying to prove it by desecrating the remains of young men who have given their lives in the defense of democracy.
There is dope on that plane.
Shut the fuck up!
Defense of democracy, by the way. Invading Vietnam.
Is it any wonder then, because of your actions, the entire federal narcotics program is now in jeopardy of being dismantled as completely an enthusiastic fucking transport plane? That is what you've accomplished, Mr. Roberts, single-handedly.
I had good...
Because he's catching the CIA at their own game. Uh-oh, gotta cover it up. Look at this liberal. Look at the way this liberal speaks so self-righteously with complete and utter conviction about the propaganda.
Information. The target of my investigation was bringing dope in on that plane.
And that target is?
His name's Frank Lucas.
Who's Frank Lucas? Who does he work for? Which family?
He's not Italian.
Is that supposed to be some kind of a joke? You're this close to the end of your career in law enforcement. You're making fucking...
My investigation indicates that Frank Lucas is above the mafia in the dope business. My investigations also indicate that Frank Lucas buys direct from a source in Southeast Asia. He cuts out the middlemen, and he uses U.S. military planes and personnel to transport pure number 4 heroin into the United States, and he's been doing so on a regular basis since 1969.
Globalism started with the drug trade.
Cases, every member of Frank's organization.
Frank's organization?
Every single
no
guy.
fucking nigger has ever accomplished what the American mafia hasn't in 100 years.
And you would know that how? Why? Because your head is stuck up your fucking ass?
Hey, Lou, do me a favor. Would you get this fucking kike out of here?
Hey, kike!
Okay, that scene ended before they found the heroin. They see it ended before they found the heroin. That's how you know that guy's a bad guy. Even though he's repeating everything that liberals believe, he used slurs at the end. Where's the part where they actually find the heroin? And it was inside the bodies, by the way. They put the heroin inside the bodies and had them removed by the corrupt, like, funeral home. They can't show the heroin on YouTube, so they just end with the hard R so they know they find it. Legitimately, these slop videos, like, these slop channels are fucking garbage. I just wanted to show you the scene, and they cut the scene off in the middle of the scene. They don't even know how to edit what scenes are. That wasn't the end of the scene, you fucking dipshit AI generated. Like, you don't even like movies. It was just part of the movie. Liberals love calling us the N-word when they don't vote how they like. Yeah. Hey, Mike, I've heard some freak keep throwing out 80% of U.S. Jews support Israel. My favorite thing about Bad and Panada is he used to call me anti-Semitic for saying that the Israel lobby is powerful in America. He called me and GDF anti-Semites. Oh, here it is. GDF caters to anti-Semitic conspiracy theorists. And now he's saying that all American Jews need to be... 1 year ago, he was calling me and GDF anti-Semitic. And now he's saying all Jews should be held responsible for Zionism. This guy is a fucking Fed if there's ever been one. He's mad at Zoran and his wife. He's all, you know, also he led the anti-Graham Plattner. Graham Plattner is pro-imperialism shit. And you know who has been the best? You know who's been the best on Venezuela? Graham Plattner. The illegal attack on Venezuela is not foreign policy. It's gangsterism on an international scale. Graham Plattner has been the best politician on this. But because of people like Bad and Panada, people are intimidated into saying it. Because they're worried they're going to be told, oh, you're supporting this veteran Nazi guy? That's what they're worried about, being called. Because Graham Plattner was a dumb fuck when he was in the military. So now, actually, people who support the fucking American empire are getting a pass, as the one guy who stands up for international law and against the American empire is basically abandoned because of the impressive Fed work of Bad and Panada. I gotta be honest, it was pretty impressive the way he successfully damaged Graham Plattner's campaign. It is pretty impressive the way that he has made a lot of people very stupid and now supporting basically what amounts to an American imperialist versus Graham Plattner. It's up to us to organize and fight back against illegal and unconstitutional military aggression. No blood for oil. I thought this guy was an imperialist toady who loved American empire. What happened? I do agree with Platter here. Just wish our standards were higher. And so you are launching your Senate campaign. What state are you running for Senate in? What's your platform? What's your background? Oh, you're not running? Oh, okay. Gotcha. Thanks. Thanks for the tip about how I wish our standards were, whatever the fuck that means. For me, this is about stopping Venezuelans from being murdered and invaded. He's doing it. He's against the Gaza genocide. I don't know about what American politicians are you imagining that exist? Here is a guy. Yeah, he's got a checkered history. Yeah, he's done shit that I don't like. I even disagree with him on stuff. But he comes out against American imperialism. By the way, right after it looks like it's successful. Right as it looks like maybe Trump pulled it off. Not after there was some disaster and it's easy. He's doing it when it's hard. He's doing after the op got pulled off. Maduro was kidnapped. No Americans were lost. He's taking a principled stand in defense of Venezuelan sovereignty and against American exceptionalist empire. And you're saying you want better? Who the fuck are you talking about? You have been brainwormed into being stupid. You have been brainwormed into being stupid. Stop paying attention to idiots. There's plenty about Graham Plattner that I don't like and I disagree with. But on this, the most important shit, he's right. So maybe slap yourself in the face and go, well, maybe, you know, my personal brand or whatever the fuck you're worried about is less important than getting someone in office who's against American empire. Can you think about that for 5 seconds, maybe? And by the way, this isn't a good thing and popular for me. It's easy for me to posture as the most moral leftist. I will never support any politician who has any personal history that I find objectionable ever. And because I'm not responsible for anything. I'm not building anything. And I was very mad about the tattoo. You know I was mad about the tattoo. The tattoo is fucking absurd. What an idiot. He's actually an idiot. But I'd rather an idiot who's got the right positions than an intelligent, evil person. I'd rather an idiot manipulated than an intelligent, evil piece of shit who's now realized. I'd rather have a Graham Plattner than a Pete Buttigieg. Graham is at least saying the right things now. Pete Buttigieg is pushing for more evil shit. Who do you think's more evil, Graham Plattner or Pete Buttigieg? If you have any doubt in your mind that it's Pete Buttigieg, you're a fucking moron. Who's more evil, Gavin Newsom or Graham Plattner? If you have any doubt in your mind that it's Gavin Newsom, you're a fucking moron. But I don't hear a lot of videos about Gavin Newsom. Why isn't Bad and Panada making a bunch of videos about Gavin Newsom? You want to know why Bad and Panada's not making a bunch of videos about Gavin Newsom? Is because Gavin Newsom is popular in liberal algorithms, and making an anti video about Gavin Newsom will hurt his stream. Liberals will be mad at him. So the only thing he cares about is making money. You got tricked by a fucking grifter. And this is a way of attacking the Majority Report, myself, and Hassan, because Graham Plattner said that he liked the Majority Report. Pathetic. If you fall for that, you're dumb. Bad and Panada purely exists to find leftists who are pro-Palestine and attempt to make them seem useless and lazy. He's psychotic. No, he is somebody who doesn't understand, like, basically, how do I put this? I'm gonna say it out loud, and it's gonna be hard to hear, but you need to hear it so you can grow up. He's one of those people that fantasized about the grand axis of resistance defeating American troops in glorious combat, and the American empire being sent back home with its tail between its legs, and Israel, the IDF, defeated in combat in the streets of Gaza, and that justice would be done. He fundamentally believes the world is a just place. He had that just world fallacy in his brain, and then seeing things not work out that way, seeing that evil can win, broke his brain. And now he just desires revenge. And he has no desire in actually kind of constructively engaging with the reality, as horrible as it is, in order to build something better in the future. He can't make any moves because he's so emotionally disabled. My response to that is, he must not have comprehended a history book. When I read a history book, and I read about the extermination of the Jews of the Holocaust, or the extermination of countless American indigenous tribes, when I hear about the Reconquista, when I hear about what the Ottoman Empire did, when I think about all of what the Japanese Empire did, I empathize with the victims, and I know that they were human beings, and I feel their pain, and I see how many evil countries got away with it. I think that Bad and Panada was not able to actually empathize with the victims of history and understand that evil countries get away with crimes all the fucking time. It doesn't mean we stop trying to engage constructively with the world as it is. I just think he's emotionally immature. And that's why 5 years ago, he was like, vote Bernie Sanders, please. Vote Bernie Sanders, please. And Bernie Sanders lost one election, and Joe Biden committed a horrifying genocide. And now he sees it with his own eyes, and he finally actually understands what empire does. It wasn't real to him until that moment. If Plattner stays as solid as he has been on Venezuela, I will support him getting another problematic tattoo as a treat. He's earned it. This, ladies and gentlemen, right now, it is the hardest time to oppose the war in Venezuela. Right now is the hardest time. Right now. So anybody who's standing up like AOC or Graham Plattner and saying no blood for oil, this is the time when it's going to be the hardest to do, because it looks like it might be a success. It looked like Trump pulled it off. Only principled people are against it. A bunch of liberals are like, well, I don't think they should have done it with Congress first, guys. We should have done it with Congress, but he was a dictator. You see Graham Plattner saying Maduro was a dictator and he, blah, 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 blah. No, he just says this is illegal. No blood for oil. At the end of the day, I need you to be better at this. I have my critiques of Graham Plattner, just like I have my critiques of AOC and Bernie Sanders. I was never I think part of it is a lot of people that are super mad at AOC, they were a fan. I was never a fan. I was never, ever, ever parasocial with AOC. I just saw AOC for what she is, a member of my generation who successfully primaried a member of Democratic leadership, and she has she's a lot better on most positions than the average Democrat. And most people think of her as most generally, she's considered to be one of the most prominent representations of the left in America. And so I understand how people think. They think through personifications of ideas rather than the ideas themselves. And so the more popular Bernie and AOC are, the more popular the left is among the American people. That's just how it goes. It's not how I want it to be, but it is how it is. And a lot of the people that fixate on AOC and Bernie Sanders and look at every single thing they disagree as a personal betrayal are just a fan. They're a fallen fan. Grow up. She's a fucking politician. I did not mean to throw shade at Platter. Throw shade, but learn how to be an adult about it and go, this guy was a dumb fuck. He went and fought wars in Iraq way after it was obvious it was wrong. He got a dumb Nazi tattoo because there's so many Nazis in our military, or there's so much worship of Nazi leadership and history in our military. That's the thing that's more disturbing, is that they make American soldiers memorize Rommel quotes right now. Yes, U.S. military personnel and leaders study and quote Field Marshal Erwin Rommel's tactical insights, admiring his aggressive, flexible command style. Honorable men, Robert E. Lee, Erwin Rommel, and the memory and forgetting of defeat and guilt. Yeah, exactly. Inspirational quotes for servicemen. Oh, here we go. United States Air Force Academy. I found it. War makes extremely heavy demands on the soldiers' strength and nerves. For this reason, make heavy demands on your men in peacetime exercises. German Field Marshal Erwin Rommel. Duty, then, is the sublimest word in the English language. You should do your duty in all things. You can never do more. You should never wish to do less. Robert E. Lee. So the U.S. Air Force Academy is making their cadets memorize Rommel and Robert E. Lee quotes? You don't think other less Nazi fucking generals said this? You got to make sure to train in peacetime. You don't think anybody's ever talked about duty? How many Lee quotes? Just the one? Okay. John Stuart Mill. War is an ugly thing, but not the ugliest of things. The decayed and degraded state of moral and patriotic feeling which thinks that nothing is worth war is much worse. The person who has nothing for which he is willing to fight, nothing which is more important than his own personal safety, is a miserable creature and has no chance of being free, unless made and kept so by the exertions of better men than himself. Ugh. If you can't get them to salute when they should salute and wear the clothes you tell them to wear, how are you going to get them to die for their country? What other are we learning? What else are we learning? What are other good quotes? If you don't know what this is, chat, basically contrails are books that Air Force cadets have to memorize. These are the quotes they're required to memorize. Erwin Rommel and Robert E. Lee. Nazis are Sun Tzu for the right wing. Yeah, that's the thing that's so funny. All right, let's by the way, presumably they're gonna let Maduro say shit, right? Like, Maduro's gonna presumably say shit in his trial. He's gonna be like, this is all bullshit. They kidnapped me because they want to steal my oil.
Dramatic pictures coming out of New York as the Venezuelan president, Nicolas Maduro, and his wife, Celia Flores, are taken from prison to a New York.
I just think it's funny, the idea that they are selling drugs. They had the most oil reserves in the history of the planet. Like, can't they just take some of the oil money? The idea that they're making $100,000 selling drugs, it's like, well, if they're corrupt, can't they just take a big chunk of the billions of dollars they sell in oil? Like, what are you talking about? Oh, but no, guys, they're really trafficking some cocaine to America.
Courthouse. First, it was a convoy coming out of the New York detention center and then into a football field where he was picked up in a hospital. Now, Alan Fisher joins us on the line from Washington. Alan, these are extraordinary pictures. Just 72 hours ago, we didn't think we would see anything like this, but now it's getting real. He's going to court. What happens today?
Well, remember, there's an element here of showmanship, that the United States has captured Nicolas Maduro. It's not as if they want to keep it quiet. They want to show what could happen to others who effectively cross the U.S. government, but effectively cross Donald Trump as well. So that is all part of the show here. As you know, now Maduro will appear in front of a judge. We're expecting that to happen around midday. The fact that he's moving now isn't a surprise. They'll avoid a huge deal of the traffic. They'll get him into the center of Washington, it's center of New York, as quickly as they possibly can. And then there'll be a hearing. The charges will be read out to Nicolas Maduro, who'll be asked if he wants to make any sort of declaration on his guilt and innocence. And then there is every possibility after that that he may well ask his legal team, who have been very quickly briefed about the circumstances, whether or not he will make any motions either now or at some point in the future about whether or not he should actually be in court. Of course, many people expect the defence to put forward the argument that he was unlawfully seized, it's against international law, and therefore he shouldn't be facing charges in a court in New York. That's likely to be thrown out. There is case history all along those lines, so it's likely that this will be a very brief appearance for Nicolas Maduro and his wife. I'm sure it is being watched in the White House, that I can see from where I'm standing right at the moment, by Donald Trump. He'll be following every single event. Court hearing itself shouldn't take very long. The symbolism, though, will last in many people's minds for some considerable time.
I mean, these are iconic pictures that we're seeing right now. A helicopter flying into the center of Manhattan, taking Nicolas Maduro and his wife to court. Alan, there is a political problem here, though, as well. A court case could backfire against Donald Trump. There's no guarantee that, you know, it's going to go his way. But there's also a short-term political problem as well, because you know, there are people that are challenging this, right?
Yeah, I think the short-term political problem isn't something that Donald Trump is particularly worried about. He believes that what he did was right. He believes that what he did was popular, particularly with his base, and that is certainly borne out by polls and social media that we're seeing. Many people believe that this was absolutely the right thing to do, of capturing Maduro and putting him on trial. He promised something similar during the election campaign. So as far as the Trump team are concerned, this is a promise made and a promise kept. Long term, whether or not this case falls apart, there's every possibility, but the time this goes to trial, Donald Trump will no longer be in office. Remember, he's only got 3...
I want you to understand something, chat, that this has happened before. The labyrinthine scandal known as Iran-Contra began to unravel in 1986 when the Nicaraguan Air Force lobbed a missile at a suspicious Fairchild cargo plane. As the fuselage packed full of grenade launchers, AK-47s, and ammunition, 2 pilots and a radio crewman plunged to the earth. A lone white guy from Wisconsin, who died just a few weeks ago, parachuted down intact and quickly admitted he worked for a CIA project with a guy named Max Gomez. And we have an emote about the Sandinista who shot down this plane. Giganista 1, Giganista 2. Gomez turned out to be Felix Rodriguez, one of Mario Tabrun's dad's, Guillermo's old comrades from the Movimiento de Recuperación de Revolucionaria. I can't speak Spanish. Or MRR, the crew of anti-communist revolutionaries led by physician Manuel Artime, that carried out the Bay of Pigs invasion and various subsequent terror attacks and sabotage operations in Cuba for years afterwards. The plane turned out to have belonged to Barry Seal, a special forces pilot turned prolific cocaine trafficker who had been murdered by cartel hitmen. Following conviction for smuggling Quaaludes, Seal had let the CIA install hidden cameras on the plane and set out on a covert sting operation to frame Nicaragua's Sandinista government for drug trafficking by capturing images of Pablo Escobar stuffing cocaine in duffel bags in Manuega alongside a titular top aide to a Sandinista general. Thereupon became the basis for Reagan administration's renewed appeal for funds to finance regime change in the Central American country. I know every American parent concerned about the drug problem will be encouraged to learn that top Nicaraguan government officials are deeply involved in drug trafficking, President Reagan said in 1986 televised speech. There seems to be no crime to which the Sandinistas will not stoop. But the Sandinista official turned out to be a former U.S. Embassy staffer, and Seal seemed to be a longtime CIA asset who appears to have participated at the Bay of Pigs and was photographed in 1963 with the same Felix Rodriguez, who would later become his agency handler. Rodriguez was not known for a soft touch. 3 officials involved in the investigation, the gruesome 1985 cartel execution of Kiki Camaria, a Mexico-based DEA agent, have repeatedly claimed Rodriguez ordered the hit after the young agent uncovered evidence revealing the extent of the agency's collaboration with Mexican cartels. An accusation the Miami stalwart, who currently stars in a series of YouTube shorts and recently hosted former Colombia President Uribe for a Bay of Pigs anniversary event, denies. So, like, literally, this is just the CIA. The CIA is doing the drug trafficking. And it's all lies. You don't think the United States of America can figure out getting all the money?
more years.
And I'm just going to
cases of
pause you
this
there
kind-
for a second because the helicopter has landed, so we're expecting to see Maduro come out. And it's a very interesting point you're making there. Donald Trump might not be in office, so there is every, it is all about the showmanship, as you said earlier, and the short-termness of this. It's about these pictures that we're seeing right now, right?
Guillermo, the guy that you from the article you just read from, handled the money for the trafficking network that Marco Rubio worked for. Yes, I know. Marco Rubio is directly, and his brother are directly involved in drug trafficking. Meanwhile, all the Democrats voted for him to be Secretary of State. If you're a little too online, you'll likely know that Marco Rubio, as a teenager, made extra cash working for his late brother-in-law, Orlando Sicilia. The business imported and sold exotic animals as a front for moving nearly 500,000 pounds of cocaine and marijuana. It was Rubio's job, according to Manuel Ronig Franzia's 2012 biography of the then senator, to build the cages. So Marco Rubio is probably a CIA agent. I mean, it is what it is. But again, does any American conservative care that every single thing that we're seeing is a fucking lie? Does everybody care that it's provably a fact that the CIA is involved with drug trafficking everywhere in the world? And American allies are the ones that are polluting our country with fucking fentanyl. Does anybody give a fuck that Wall Street bankers make billions and billions of dollars cleaning the money? No, it's so we can throw addicts and poor people in prison and use them as slave labor. It's so that we have a justification for stealing the resources of the rest of the world. The United States of America will one day fall. That is inevitable. It's not going to fall without resistance.
Yeah, but name any politician that isn't involved in short-term.
Knowing that Afghanistan produces a lot more of heroin, and heroin was the number one drug before fentanyl, it makes you really wonder, why did we go to Afghanistan? It only became the top producer after we went in, Wrecking Ball. The Taliban had eradicated heroin in Afghanistan prior to 9/11. Here's a 2000 fact sheet. Hold on, let me see if we can find it. Here it is. New York Times, May 20th, 2021. Or sorry, May 20th, 2001. Taliban's ban on poppy a success, U.S. aides say. The first American narcotics experts to go to Afghanistan under Taliban rule have concluded that the movement's ban on opium poppy cultivation appears to have wiped out the world's largest crop in less than a year, officials said today. The American findings confirm earlier reports of the United Nations Drug Control Program that Afghanistan, which supplied about 3/4 of the world's opium and most of the heroin reaching Europe, has ended poppy planting in one season. But the eradication of poppies has come at a terrible cost for farming families. And experts say it will not be known until fall planting season begins whether the Taliban can continue to enforce it. So when America went into Afghanistan less than 6 months later, suddenly heroin started. CIA agents seemingly walk and plant heroin at the same time. And when the United States was thrown out and the Taliban emerged victorious, they banned it again. And they succeeded. So America was in Afghanistan for 20 years and we just couldn't control the heroin. Oh my God, the heroin. Oh, we spent $1 trillion on our military. We can't stop the poppy farmers. I guess they can move their crops around. The drug problem in the United States is created by the government. And it's really that simple. And they let everybody get away with it as long as they're connected to American intelligence agencies or American capital. There's a reason why there's no drug problem in China, because American intelligence agencies and American capital are not in control. That's why they hate it. And this is all, I mean, we already covered it. I don't want to repeat myself, but basically when the Communist Party won the revolution, the first thing they did was help all the addicts quit heroin. The Communist Party of China basically cured heroin addiction, and they didn't do it by killing all the addicts, by the way. They put them into rehab. Did kill the dealers because the dealers were CIA agents. There's a reason why the American and European empires went to war to force China to consume opium. We are the original drug cartels. They never moved. They were British and American from the beginning. They never moved anywhere. The First Opium War, also known as the Anglo-Chinese War, was a series of military engagements fought between the British Empire and the Chinese Qing dynasty between 1839 and 1842. The immediate issue was the Chinese enforcement of their ban on the opium trade by seizing private opium stocks from mainly British merchants and threatening to impose the death penalty for future offenders. Despite the opium ban, the British government supported the merchants' demand for compensation and seized goods and insisted on the principles of free trade and equal diplomatic recognition with China. Opium was Britain's single most profitable commodity trade of the 19th century. The entire British Empire was a narco empire. You know that? Did you hear that in your history book? How many Americans study the British Empire like that and realize, oh, actually it was just a narco fucking slavery empire?
Termism. They don't tend to plant trees and then enjoy the fact that they bloom some point later. Politicians are about the here and now, the next hit on the opinion polls. And Donald Trump is no different from that. He perhaps likes more of a show. But this is kind of the thing that you would expect for such a high-profile case and such a high-profile defendant. Although it's Nicolas Maduro, we've seen many other cases where this sort of security is absolutely normal. And as I say, it's probably all being watched from the White House by Donald Trump.
I hear some people going, but Mike, wasn't the heroin trade actually wasn't the mafia? Didn't they start it? Actually, it was the CIA aligned American officials who set up the CIA's heroin trade in Sicily. Agency operatives helped the mafia seize total power in Sicily and sends money to heroin smuggling Corsican mobsters and Marseille to assist in their battle with communist unions for control of the city's docks. That was one of the first things the CIA did, is support the mafia to prevent communist labor unions from organizing longshoremen. It's called the French Connection, correct. Drug trafficking and cartels are just American CIA agents and Western intelligence agencies. It's how they get dark money to fund their operations. It was all exposed in the Iran-Contra affair. Everybody's known about this for decades. And yet we do this rigmarole about how it's like gangsters on the street are selling drugs. Like that's where drugs come from. Do you see a bunch of poppy farms in fucking the inner city?
Look at some of the staging.
Nicolas Maduro is now
look at some of the staging
out.
over the last couple of days.
He's actually
you got to
out
look at some of the staging over the last couple of days where Maduro was led down by DEA officers along a carpet that had DEA on it. Now, that was done so that the DEA can put that onto their website at some point. This is all about the image and all about selling the story.
And that's the exact same image that we're seeing right now. He's being led by DEA agents, and I think, yes, DEA agents. He's in handcuffs. He's walking along that quay where the helicopter landed. He's surrounded by these agents. This is a very powerful image. His wife is walking behind him, Celia Flores. This is extraordinary to watch.
Another book I recommend called Drug Cartels Do Not Exist. Narco Trafficking in U.S. and Mexican Culture. In fact, the Zapatista cartel... Not the Zapatista, sorry. The Zato cartel, or what is it? It's like Zato cartel? What is it? Fucking what is it? Fuck, not Zapatistas. The Zapatistas are a socialist movement. I'm sorry, my brain just... Zeta cartel, that's the one I was thinking of. Jesus Christ. Sorry about that, chat. The Zeta cartel, thank you. It was started by former special ops soldiers in Mexico under a conservative government. The Los Zetas were named after its first member, Arturo Guzman de Senta, whose federal judicial police radio code was Z1, a code giving to high-ranking officers. The radio code for commanding federal judicial police officers in Mexico was Y, and officers are nicknamed Yankees, while federal judicial police in charge of a city was the codename Z. Thus, they are nicknamed as Zetas, the Spanish word for the leather. Arturo Guzman de Senta was also known by his codename Z1, was a Mexican Army Special Forces officer and high-ranking member of Los Zetas. Who do you think traded the Mexican Army Special Forces? The GAFE reportedly received training in commando and urban warfare from Israeli Sayeret and U.S. Army Special Forces, which included training in rapid deployment, marksmanship, ambushes, counter-surveillance, and the art of intimidation. It was also known that at some point several members were trained in the infamous U.S. Army School of the Americas in enhanced interrogation techniques and physiological warfare, PSYOPs, aka torture. I mean, this is all known. This is not even really that the fact that people don't know it is more of a sign of their own laziness and lack of curiosity about the world. And it's an embarrassment. You know what it's like to be me and listen to people talk about shit like they actually read a single fucking thing about it before they open their fat fucking mouth? It's embarrassing. They don't know anything at all. But we have this kind of opinion in America where your opinion is equal to my fact. You're allowed to have an opinion. You're allowed to yap without even having any fucking clue what you're talking about. And that's why we have Donald fucking Trump as president. He's the ultimate example of Americans. They yap, yap, yap while knowing fucking nothing except how greedy and selfish they are.
And as you say, this is all about the image. Now, when he actually gets to court, like you say, it's going to be quick. It's pretty much the question, do you plead guilty or not guilty? But do we know, Alan, if he does have a legal team in place already?
Guys, look, the CIA agent, 20 years ago, they'd be like, Castro won't know what hit him when he smokes my explosive cigar. Now it's, Mike, did you know that Grant Platter was in the army? That's what the CIA agents are now. Grant Platter was in the army! Bro, he's saying he's against war for oil. I know you're trying to distract into like you want to disable the left from supporting the one guy running for Senate who's against the war in Venezuela. I know your job is to push us into a war with Venezuela, but can you do something smarter? This is the time not to talk about Graham Plattner, actually. This is the time to be quiet about Graham Plattner because he's right about the empire. He's right about opposing the Venezuela shit. You're supposed to know. Let me give you some advice, CIA agents and Bad Empanada. You should shut the fuck up about Graham Plattner for a while because he's right and you look stupid and wrong. Most of the CIA operatives are posting about how the streets of Venezuela are celebrating right now. Did Bad Empanada post that yet? Or is he being like America Yankee KKK? I think that he has to say America Yankee KKK, but I could also see him saying that Maduro was kind of did he post a video about like an anti-Maduro video? Didn't Bad Empanada post an anti-Maduro video to help build the case against Maduro? Shocking.
What's the situation there? Do we know any details?
Well, of course, when he was arrested, when he was taken into custody in his own compound.
Mexico had 90 years of conservative leadership, PRI, and it's never mentioned the cartels formed under their leadership or how the CIA used the cartels to arm fascist groups in Latin America. The cartels in Mexico are literally CIA agents. It's not, everybody knows this. It's not even a secret. It's not even a secret.
In Caracas, Marco Rubio tells us that his rights were read to him.
This is from his Reddit account where he posted psycho shit. The psycho shit is about how much he enjoyed being an infantry member 10 years ago. Now, I don't know what else. I know how to explain this, but like when people do a thing, there's a camaraderie. There is a feeling that is created. That's called esprit de corps. It's part of the main ways in which militaries maintain morale, which you wouldn't know what any of that means because you don't treat military forces with the requisite amount of intellect. You just think of them as like bad, which is why your movement has nothing and will win nothing because it doesn't understand that force is required in order to achieve material gains. And you want to have this kind of what I would call, it's like a childish fetishization of innocence. You want innocence instead of effectiveness. That is why you fail. No one is innocent. He committed crimes. He regrets those crimes. And now he's arguing against the American empire. You want to point out that he committed crimes. We all acknowledge that he committed crimes. America is guilty. All of us are complicit. The question is, where do you stand right now? Well, America commits yet another crime. Where are you? Are you in favor of it? There's a lot of people who never served in the U.S. military right now that are supporting Venezuela being invaded. They're guilty. Graham Plattner is speaking out against it, and he's running for the United States Senate. How many people are like that exist? I have a lot of problems with Graham Plattner. A lot of things bother me about what he chose to do in his life. I took a different path. I could have gone down that path, but I took a different path. In 2003, I turned away. I made the right decision, and I quit. I thought it was wrong, and I quit. I was way ahead of the curve. Does anybody give me credit? Does anybody care that I gave up a bunch of stuff that I had earned in order to do the right thing? Do anyone care? I don't bring it up because it would probably be used to attack me more than anything. 99% of you don't even know what I'm talking about, which is exactly my point because it doesn't matter. People try to say that I ran as a Republican. They just lie on me personally. Wait, you were military? I was, I was at the Air Force Academy and I quit in February of 2003, March 2003, in the run up to the Iraq War. I resigned because I didn't agree with it. Giving up a full ride scholarship. Who cares? Who cares? Does anybody care? Does anybody say, wow, Mike is so principled? No, they call me they say I'm a fucking imperialist, a Republican, whatever the fuck else. Doesn't matter. They lie on it. Doesn't matter. And you know what my reward for that was, chat? I went and I worked manual labor. That was my reward. The next year I was working manual labor the next year. And I was a very good academically. But who gives a shit? I don't give a fuck. Who cares? So bad, so sad. People suffered a lot more than me. I made a decision. Who gives? And it's because I made that decision that I've realized that that's not what's important. What's important is seizing power and stopping the invasion from happening. Not me making some personal stand quixotically like that fucking matters. It doesn't. No one gives a shit. You know what does matter? Power. You know what matters? The ability to do what I want in the world for good. And if you, if you think, oh, I vandalized, guys, there's this person named Kayla Walsh who is 22 years old, and she vandalized an American, arms factory and got arrested, right? And wow, that's, obviously we cannot support committing crimes on the Central Committee stream. That'll get you banned. Okay, you're not allowed to commit, support crimes. It's against Twitch TOS. It's important to remember that. But I can look at what she did and say, wow, that was a principled action to vandalize L-bit systems and register your personal objection. Did that stop a single bomb or missile or rocket or mortar shell or bullet going to Israel? Did that lead to a spontaneous social and political revolution that overturned the American empire? It was great for her personal brand building as a principled leftist, but ultimately, what has that resulted in? Has she organized hundreds of thousands of Americans? Has she created a political party that has taken the country by storm? Has anything actually fundamentally changed? Because 99% of her time now is spent tweeting about how DSA is bad, Zoran is bad, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's it. And ultimately, I gotta tell you, chat, that's baby shit. That's baby shit. Spray painting something. It almost seems to, it seems to me that she and many of you believe that we just need to get people to know that stuff's happening, and then something, question mark, profit. Everybody knows. Now what? Everybody knows. Now what? I've known for 25 fucking years. Now what? It's because I've known for so long that I understand that change doesn't happen because you know things. It's because we collectively have organizations that are powerful. It's not because you individually are correct, or you've individually read the books, or you've individually do right from wrong. That is liberalism. Am I part of an organization powerful enough to assert my interests, my collective interests? The answer is no. DSA is starting to build into something. Starting to. And so many people online believe it's like, well, if DSA just pushed the communism button, if China just pushed the communism button, I can't believe Xi Jinping hasn't pushed the socialism button. Why isn't Xi Jinping fighting in fucking Palestine? Why isn't Xi Jinping sending the Chinese Navy off the shores of Venezuela to confront the American empire? Why isn't China supporting the Philippine Maoist insurgents? Everything is why isn't everybody else doing something instead of my organization is doing X? And I only say this, I'm not ranting because I want, I'm against having principles or something. No, I have principles. I've suffered for my principles. I gave up dreams. I was disillusioned. I was reduced to basically nothing because I was a good student. I was a hard worker, and I gave it all up for my principles. Do you understand that when you do that, you don't come out better off than when you started? There's a lot of people that spoke out on Palestine and lost their jobs, or people who spoke out who are now blacklisted. I can't run ads on this stream because I support Palestine. That probably costs me mid 5 figures in revenue for my stream, minimum. And I don't say that. I say this because it's not something that I hold over people's heads, because who gives a shit? It doesn't make me better because I did something 20 years ago. Suppose leftists fantasizing that where there are no bad people among the Cuban guerrillas or Viet Cong or any force that successfully opposed U.S. imperialism, we could always support the most morally just robot. Because when every single one of us has to have our morality investigated for any error, and the moment that you find any mistake or problem or bad take that we've ever had, it's a reason not to trust and not to support and not to work with. It's an excuse to never do anything. That's exactly what the CIA wants, is for you to find an excuse why so-and-so sucks and not do anything. That's exactly the point.
Among those rights, the Miranda rights, as they're known in the United States, you're told that if you cannot afford counsel, then counsel will be appointed for you. We don't know.
You're 39? No. I'm older than that.
What the position is with Maduro, whether he's been given a court-appointed attorney, whether that will happen now, or whether he already has a legal team, perhaps even is the government of Venezuela. Remember, the vice president who took over the top role said that she regarded Maduro still as the legitimate president of Venezuela. Will Venezuela fund his legal defense? Some of those questions will become clearer over the next couple of hours or so. So that will all just play out in the courtroom during the hearing itself. There's one other thing I want to point out about the imagery that we're seeing. The fact that he's accompanied by DEA agents, that's the Drug Enforcement Agency here in the United States. It is a law enforcement agency. That's important because, of course, Marco Rubio has been on the defensive with people saying any sort of action in Venezuela on the ground was an act of war. And he said, no, this was not an act of war. We didn't have to get congressional approval. This was a law enforcement operation. And the fact that law enforcement, you would never see soldiers taking someone like Maduro into court anyway, but the fact that the DEA are so front and center here is to re-emphasize the point that the Trump administration is keen to make, that this was a law enforcement operation, that the reason that they are there and they moved in was because he was a fugitive from justice. This was not an act of war against Venezuela.
Now, Nicolas Maduro and Celia Flores, his wife, have been put into an armoured car. They are now travelling up out of the key to the courthouse where presumably
Mike,
he'll meet
you're 40 plus, yeah,
with his legal team and lodge whether he's going to appeal guilty or not guilty. We've got Kristen Salumi on the line at the moment as well. Kristen, in the last couple of days...
The problem the American has is a self-flagellation problem? No, it's not the problem the American left has. It's one of the many problems the American left has. The first is, one, a childish understanding of the way power works. The second is a self-flagellation, personal brand building among leaders on social media. 3, there is a disconnection between social media discussion and actual on-the-ground organizing. 4, we don't have a coherent political line. 5, like I go on more and more and more. But basically, the American left is such a wide, undifferentiated, unorganized mass. It's nothing more than a lot of people's individual opinions. And anytime someone tries to build an organization, there is profit to be made in criticizing it as if you are a more pure person. And my personal opinion is I no longer want to hear the organizational criticisms of unorganized leftists. If you are unorganized, you don't have an opinion. I don't give a shit. If you're not in solidarity with a group of socialists, your opinion is invalid. It took decades for the Bolsheviks to organize meaningfully. The U.S. needs to start reset class consciousness. We don't have class consciousness except among the rich. The American left was disconnected from the military and the workplace intentionally. Exactly. And people telling us, oh, we should shame anybody who was a veteran is a fucking op. I want guys who know how to run a machine gun and Stinger missiles in my fucking group. I want guys who know how to do to clear a room in my fucking co-op. I want guys who know how to hold Overwatch and reach out and touch someone at 300 meters in my group. You could have the unorganized peaceniks, okay? I'll have the guys who know how to throw a hand grenade. All right? Deal? I was at a rally in response to Maduro's kidnapping in Pershing Square, and when the DSA arrived, I heard this guy go, well, the CIA is here. Oh man, I can't believe this guy is so organized. There is without a doubt agents in the DSA, because of course there are. It's the largest socialist organization in America. There are fucking agents in like the Denver BLM. Organization is pointless.
You've been spending time with Venezuelans. They're split in kind of their opinion of this, but whether you like Nicolas Maduro or not, or whether you're looking at these pictures, everybody's going to be looking at these pictures glued to their TV sets, right? This is extraordinary. What have people been telling you, Kristen?
Like much of the United States, when it comes to anything political, the people I've seen have been very divided, but have very strong feelings. I was outside of the detention center where he is being held yesterday, and there were Venezuelan immigrants who were walking by who said they had to come by just to see that he was there and to express themselves. They were thrilled that he was behind bars. I don't think you're going to find many Venezuelans who like Maduro here in the United States and want him in power. That said, there are concerns about how he was removed and what comes next, of course. And the protests we've seen, and there have been protests, and we expect more outside of the courthouse today, the protests have been Americans who are upset about not going to Congress, not asking for war, waging this military action. Again, of course, we just heard Alan saying that the president and the Secretary of State have not called it an act of war. This is a criminal matter as far as they're concerned. Americans see this as a violation. Some of them see this as a concern, as him acting without Congress and violating international law, and we saw signs to that effect there. So,
Kristen, I just want to ask you,
at the courthouse.
I want to ask you a question, because the detention center that he was taken from is controversial in many ways, right? What's the controversy about that place?
Yeah, it has issues with its management. I mean, frankly, all prisons in New York, many of them in New York, they're understaffed. They have issues with violence and lack of control. I understand that this facility, because of lack of staffing, sometimes people are put on lockdown and they have to stay in their cells. Apparently, Mr. Maduro and his wife will be kept separate from the general population because of their high profile, but that doesn't mean they won't be subjected to these difficult conditions, the bad food, the fighting, the lockdowns, and so on. So it is somewhat controversial in that sense, certainly a far cry from style of life he's used to living in Caracas.
Kristen, just stay there. I want to bring in Alan Fisher here. Alan, let's just talk about the charges that he faces. It's narco trafficking, it's cocaine smuggling, it is weapons smuggling as well. So you've got to build a case around all of these. But we've been talking to guests in the last 24, 48 hours who've said to us the government's key witness here has been already discredited by a certain amount of legal expertise within the US itself. So by no means is this a cut and dried case, right?
Well, very few are, of course. I mean, everyone thinks they've got a solid case until they put it in front of a jury, and that's what they're going to have to do at this point. The most startling thing, though, in the indictment is the fact that fentanyl isn't mentioned anywhere. I mean, Donald Trump has for so long said they're sending fentanyl into the United States. People who objected to the attacks on the boats said that's simply not the case. There's no evidence of this. And in many of the attacks on the boats, in fact, in almost all of them, the White House hasn't provided any evidence of people that they have killed, of these fishing boats that they've attacked. But Donald Trump and the White House continued to say they were transporting white powder. They were also sending fentanyl into the United States, yet in nowhere in the four-point indictment is there any mention of fentanyl at all. There is cocaine. Now, there's all sorts of questions about how much involvement the CIA have had in Latin America in the cocaine trade and whether or not they were moving around money to provide help to armed groups that they wanted to support. Some of that may well come out in court. And there was also...
Sorry, Alan, I'm just going to disturb you. I'm just going to disturb you there and bring back in Kristen Salumi. Kristen, they've arrived, the convoys arrived in number 1 Police Plaza. Now, I do know New York a fair bit, but I don't know where this is. Geographically, would you be able to kind of locate where we are right now in New York?
Yes, absolutely. This is the part of town where police headquarters are. New York City, of course, has the largest police department in the country, if not perhaps the world, 35,000 employees. It's the size of a small army. Police headquarters are there. local courts and federal courts are there as well. And we've certainly seen a lot of high-profile guests come to the courthouse where Nicolas Maduro and his wife are going to. We've seen the rapper Sean Diddy Combs. We've seen Senator Bob Menendez, a New Jersey senator who was convicted recently, was tried in this court. Sam Bankman-Fried, just the list goes on. So and narco-terrorism and drug traffickers as well have been tried there, including the former president of Honduras, who ironically was pardoned less than a year after he was sentenced by Donald Trump. So this is a very secure facility, a very guarded facility, and it'll take a while before we see him before a judge. He's getting there early so he can be processed, so he presumably will meet his legal team. We have not heard if he's been assigned a lawyer or if he's been able to hire a lawyer at this point. It's kind of hard to imagine he's been on the phone from his prison cell talking to his legal team. This will probably be the first chance he gets to talk to a lawyer. All of that to say eventually he'll have to appear before the judge and answer to these charges. What we expect to happen today is an arraignment when the defendant is formally accused of the charge and presented with the charge, and they have to register how they plead, either guilty or not guilty. Of course, it's standard to say not guilty and go from there. From there, this is a process that's going to take months, if not years, to work its way through the courts.
But do you think this level of security is going to happen every single time he goes to court? Just to remind our viewers, he has gone in an armoured car to a helicopter from the detention centre to a helicopter to another armoured car into the centre of Manhattan.
Some people are saying Maduro did a double dick suck dance and that made Trump want to invade.
Please, please, please. Yes, peace. Listen to me. Yes, peace. Peace forever. Peace forever. Peace forever. Esto se llama lenguaje tarzaneado. Tipo Tarzán sería sí paz, sí paz. Sí, paz por siempre. Miren.
Now that I think about it, wasn't Bad Empanada's entire channel created because Maduro like ate an empanada on a video? Wasn't that like the entire reason the channel was created? Like, that's why I called Bad Empanada, because it was like going after Maduro. The caption read Tarzan-like language at some point. Oh boy.
By security, surrounded by DEA agents. This is a production. Is that the kind of thing that you've seen in the past, Kristen? Is this just standard?
Have I seen this?
I don't recall an inmate being hella... I mean, even when Donald Trump comes to town, they close off the streets and shut them down so he can pass through, but he passes through in a car usually. Not that he doesn't use a helicopter, but normally we see him, when he went to court, he drove to court. He didn't chopper to court. So it is highly unusual as far as I know. I don't pretend to know every case of New York, but I can't recall seeing a defendant in a helicopter.
I mean, these are certainly very, very powerful images. Let me just recap what's happened in the last half hour or so. About 30 minutes ago, something like that, we saw Nicolas Maduro leave the New York detention center. He was surrounded by DEA agents, all in heavy military gear, flak jackets, with rifles out. He was put into...
Holy shit, chat. We have a hype train going on. We are currently dangerously close to 8,000 subscriptions due to open presents and incredibly generous 100 gifty subs. If you enjoy the content, please consider supporting it by subscribing at tier 1, tier 2, or tier 3 sub. If you have Amazon Prime, you can attach that to your Twitch account. You get 1 free sub a month. That's your Twitch Prime sub. Please consider supporting us.
A heavily armored car, the kind of thing that you might see in Baghdad, the kind of thing that you might see when the American military go abroad. There was a convoy. That convoy spent about 10 minutes getting to the helicopter landing pad. His wife, Celia Flores, and himself were taken then out of that convoy and put into a helicopter that looked like it was taking off from a football field. That helicopter, a very short journey across the River Hudson into Manhattan, where it landed at a quayside. Once again, he was transferred. Nicolas Maduro being walked first, his wife being walked first, surrounded again by these heavily armed DEA agents. These are pictures that are going to go back in history. And then he's just arrived at #1 Police Plaza. Kristen, as you were just saying, that is a secure facility. It's not only just a police plaza, but that's where the trial is going to take place. I'm wondering here, I don't know, but Kristen, have you ever covered a trial inside that building? Can you walk us through what it actually looks like?
Are you still there? Can you hear me?
Kristen, can you hear me? Kristen, have you got me? I think
Hello?
Kristen,
Try again. Sorry.
Kristen, Kristen,
I think
great.
I hear you now.
Yeah, Kristen, great. I was just saying that they've arrived at #1 Police Plaza in Manhattan. I don't know if you've done this before, but have you covered a trial inside that building? Can you tell us anything about what it's like to be inside that building?
Yes, absolutely. The federal courts don't allow cameras in the courtroom. So whenever there's a high-profile case, you have to wait in line to get inside. Courtrooms are open to the public, first come, first served. In a case like this, that may be, there'll be so many lawyers and so much media in there. It'll be interesting to see if any actual public were able to get inside. But the floors are very secure. The defendant is let in through a secure entrance. He'll probably be processed at Police Plaza and then taken underground into the courthouse. So we aren't likely to see him on the street near the courthouse in Midtown, well, technically Lower Manhattan. Once we get inside, as I said, this is an arraignment, and the arraignments are pretty straightforward usually. It's establishing the legal teams for each side, stating the charges, what they are, laying out a schedule for the upcoming trial. The pleas are entered on behalf of the defendants, either guilty or not guilty. We do have the indictment, though, which is giving us a little bit more information about this case. It's a 25-page indictment. They won't get into that very much today. I can promise you that.
But that indictment is actually,
see little clues.
Kristen, that indictment is actually extraordinary because for the longest time, Donald Trump has been accusing Nicolas Maduro of shipping fentanyl, which is an addictive substance, into the U.S. 25 pages, not one single mention of that particular. You know, what is actually, do we know what's actually the details of what's in the indictment?
So he's facing 4 charges: narco-terrorism, conspiracy to distribute cocaine, and then weapons charges as well. And what they say is that he and his family members were corrupt, basically, that they were allowing drug dealers to come and go. And some of the specific things that they mention is providing travel visas and diplomatic cover to drug traffickers. They even claim that they let them use a government airport hangar for their planes. But it's not very specific. There's not a lot of details. So, and as you say, there's no mention of fentanyl. The specific charges refer to cocaine, which they say Venezuela was helping to get into Mexico and into the United States. They name in the indictment
Kristen, very quickly,
host of criminal gangs and groups as well.
Kristen, very quickly, you just said that there weren't much details in the indictment. I'm not an expert on, you know, the U.S. judicial system. Is that unusual, or is that just part of the course?
Well, they don't lay out every single piece of evidence in the indictment. It's enough to lay out their case. So, it seems very general and not very specific.
Right.
But at the same time, you don't get detailed evidence in an indictment. It's more of a general statement. So really, it'll be up to the lawyers to make the case in court.
In other words, there's really no evidence whatsoever. There really is is no evidence whatsoever. They're just making general claims.
MS Now legal affairs reporter Fallon Gallagher is there live outside that New York City courthouse where Maduro will appear. And also with us, our White House reporter Laura Barone Lopez, former assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs.
Why is he limping? He's in shackles.
Chris Marr, and former New York Assistant Attorney General Adam Pollock. So Fallon, what is happening there right now? And walk us through what this hearing will look like in the next hour.
Yeah, Anna, with just an hour to go before this initial court appearance, a very large group of protesters has gathered to my right. We're seeing people who are both supportive of President Trump's actions over the weekend and also people who are opposing U.S. intervention in Venezuela. But with just an hour to go, we expect Nicolas Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, to make their initial appearance for an arraignment in federal court behind me. New this hour, we are learning who will represent Nicolas Maduro. His name is Barry Pollock, and he has represented Julian Assange in his legal matters. But they will appear before the judge for that arraignment. They are facing those 4 charges, drug trafficking related charges. There's that narco-terrorism, the importation of cocaine, and 2 weapons related charges. We do expect that they will plead not guilty to those 4 charges. And then the judge will walk through some other procedural matters. We expect that he'll say that they must remain detained in the MDC in Brooklyn. And we may even learn a trial date as soon as today. Now, I want to be clear and cautious that any trial date that we get today would just be an initial date. I expect it will be a very long time before this actually goes to trial and a jury is seated in the Southern District of New York to hear this case. But this is a big day because this is this initial appearance, and this is what will really set the ball rolling. What we still don't know is what will happen to those other co-defendants who are named in this indictment. We know that his son has also been charged, along with the Interior Minister and the leader of TDA, that drug trafficking organization that has been accused of perpetuating this cocaine distribution within the U.S. So these are all unknowns, but we expect to have more answers within the next hour. Anna?
Okay, and Adam Pollock is sitting here with me. No relation to the attorney now representing Nicolas Maduro. Obviously, he and his wife are not American citizens here. Adam, what legal justification does the American government have to do all of this, to go in, to remove and then charge a foreign leader?
So a couple of things. One is the United States has for a very long time held the view that crimes that happen abroad that affect Americans within the United States, like drug trafficking, are legitimate grounds for prosecution. There's no reason that somebody sitting abroad can't be prosecuted for crimes like drug trafficking. That's separate from how do they get to the United States. And I think that for at least since the late 1800s, the Supreme Court has blessed the forcible taking, kidnapping, rendition, whatever word you want to apply to it, of foreign individuals, bringing them to the United States for prosecution. And the United States Supreme Court has not concerned itself with how did they get there. They say when they are here, they can be prosecuted.
Yeah, we're not talking about a former leader. We were talking about a sitting president of a foreign country, and now transported through this country's most populous city, going to be...
All right, Chad, we have China's statement at the UN. The reality is that unless you have nuclear weapons, here's what I just tweeted as we were listening to that. The United States has dynamited international institutions by making it very clear that laws don't apply to the United States and its proxies. If you want to be an independent nation, nuclear weapons are required. That's the world the U.S. has created. Mike, we could not hear that? Huh? It was pretty loud. It was pretty loud.
At once, we support the...
Here, I'll play it again. It's only 2 minutes.
Support all efforts, stark warning, and the indiscriminate greater crisis, even armed, did this action development. Venezuela, with every right, the Caribbean in global development and prosperity, have every right to choose their development and jointly safeguard.
Now, I think one of the things is like China is basically was the American path to a superpower status. America did not become a superpower by interfering in countries all over the place. It did it by primarily developing its own territory, investing in its own infrastructure, projects like the Intercontinental Railroad. Now, fundamentally, America is a settler colonial state. It fundamentally is an empire. It fundamentally is in its essence, founded off of an amalgamation of many nations and immigrant waves. But the other thing is China is able to develop, and China is developing because of 2 reasons. One, they have nuclear weapons. 2, they have a political system strong enough to resist American pressure. Very few countries have both of those things. And I don't know what to tell you, chat. If you don't have the strength to resist the American military on conventional and nuclear terms, it's fucking Jover. Here, let me tell you what I'm talking about. One of the things I love about Xi Jinping is, honestly, he gets that the 21st century is about being nonchalant. He just likes to aura farm. Like, whose idea was the podium car? This shit's fucking awesome, dude. The podium car is absolutely fucking incredible. One of the things that's really interesting about the Chinese political system is functional because of this. Here, let me show you the beginning of this marching because it's important. Okay, hold on. We got this. The reason why China has been able to resist the United States and develop itself is because the political system is strong enough to repulse American interference. And it is exemplified in this march. At the very front of the line is the flag of the Communist Party of China. Then it's the national flag. And then it's the flag of the PLA. Because the Communist Party of China is a meritocratic organization, you don't just get to join the Communist Party of China. It's an incredibly competitive and difficult to become a communist in China. It's like getting admitted to a desirable university. It's hard to become a communist. They don't just invite anyone. Party over country. Countries are made up. Classes are the way our societies are actually organized. Countries are arbitrary lines on a map that didn't exist 200 years ago. Nationalism is a constructed identity, and it's very recent. You know, we didn't have passports in this country till the 40s. You understand that, right? The American border was basically open. So, and I can tell you, chat, that what the United States has done by invading Venezuela, by seizing their leader, is they have created a society and a world where strength is all that will prevail.
Okay, thank you for waiting. The president has asked me to come out and make a brief statement about the wire that just went out a couple minutes ago. To make things short, I will just confirm that yes, we do have a moon base, and yes, we are currently experiencing some bear problems. Now, I will open it up if there are any questions.
Mr. Press Secretary! Mr. Press Secretary! Mr. Press Secretary!
New York Times.
Yes. I have a 11-part question.
I'm sorry, I only have time for 2.
All right, let me get this straight. So the United States government is admitting that we do have a moon base and that there is a bear problem on said moon base.
Yes, that is correct.
All right, follow-up question. Are you us?
That's a really good question.
No, we are not, and I would like to remind everyone to keep the language civilized. This is the White House.
Excuse me, Mr. Secretary, Bob Daniels, Newsweek.
Mr. Daniels.
How long have we had the moon base? And are these bears Earth bears, or are they from the moon?
I'm sorry, I'm not at liberty to disclose how long we have had this moon base at this time. We do believe these to be Earth bears. We have no reason to believe these to be lunar bears or even Saturn bears.
Todd Albright, PBS. There's Saturn bears?
I am also not at liberty to go into the various types of woodland life forms on Saturn or any of the other 12 planets.
9 planets.
Right. I've said too much already. What I can show you is the images that have been beamed down to us from the Odyssey satellite system just a couple hours ago. This is the view out of the front door of the United States secret moon base. This was taken yesterday before we discovered the bear problem. And this one was taken just a couple hours ago. So, as you can see, bears everywhere.
Mr. Press Secretary! Mr. Press Secretary!
Mr. Jackson.
Yeah, those bears appear to have guns and motorcycles.
We believe they may be involved in some sort of intergalactic drug cartel, perhaps affiliated with one of the interstellar wizard alliances.
Wizard alliances?
Yes, next question.
Just a thought, more of a shot in the dark, but We wouldn't happen to be invading
Venezuela
today, would we?
You got me.
I fell for it. You almost got away with that one.
No, I went too far. I almost had it. I should have stopped after the slides. I knew I should have stopped
I didn't
there.
think anything about it until the cartel thing, and I was like,
Okay, all right, let's forget this whole thing. Who wants a drink? First round's on me. Come on.
Yeah! That's the American media. The American media in a nutshell.
This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org. I'm Amy Goodman with Juan Gonzalez. We're breaking in.
All right, before we continue and cover this, there's a new trend going on in China chat. And a lot of Chinese millennials and Gen Z are posting videos like this, which is before and after videos of their new homes and apartments on social media. So they show their new apartment before it's constructed, and then they show you, like, you know, it when it's completely decorated and finished. Now, as of 10 years ago, 70% of Chinese millennials were homeowners. So I think that number has gone up. This was 10 years ago. So meanwhile, in the US, I think it's around 30%. Let me look that up. Maybe it might be up to 50%. Percentage of American millennials own homes. I think we might have gotten to 50%. Not Chinese, American. I can't spell. Okay, 51. We just passed 51%. Yay! Yay! Oh, wait. That might have gone down. This was when the interest rates were high. At age 30, just 42% of millennials own homes, compared to 48% of Gen Xers and 51% of baby boomers. This gap persisted to their early 40s, with the oldest millennials still having a lower rate of ownership than previous generations when they were that age. So this is a sign of America falling behind.
This is not just a foreign issue, it's our tax dollars that are also being used to commit these war crimes. It is also the duty of us, the people, to stand against the Trump regime, the Trump administration, that are committing crimes both here in the U.S. and against people in Venezuela.
Now, in the background of this interview, you could see that police car. And now right here, we're showing you video we have immediately after the interview finished. Plickta was arrested by 2 Grand Rapids police officers. You can see it in the video, and an officer tells Plickta that she is being arrested for obstructing a roadway and failure to obey a lawful command from a police officer. You can see as she's taken away in that car, she was issuing a number of messages about wanting the U.S. to free Maduro. But again, she was taken away by police officers there, and you can see in this video, officers were closely following this procession in downtown Grand Rapids. We have reached out to GRPD for more information about the arrest, but we have not heard back so far.
I think one of the things that you should always recognize and understand is that all of the cope that Americans say is not true anymore. We're not the largest economy in the world. We're not wealthiest country in the world anymore. That's China. The American dream doesn't exist unless you're in the top 10% of wealth, falling behind. We don't have the right to criticize the government. We don't have freedom of speech. And now we're getting arrested for protesting, and we have a measles outbreak. A recent Lancet study found that sanctions from Western countries, namely the United States, have caused 38 million deaths since 1970. How many people look at that and say that proves capitalism is evil? How China overtook the U.S. in global trade. In 2000, China's largest trading partner, the United States was the largest trading partner of almost every country in the world. Now in 2024, it looks like this. And this is why the United States is losing their mind. Not because China is a threat. It's not a threat. It's because China may displace the United States as the largest economy. And what has China said? They want to do Mutual, they want to be non-interference, and they want to have the United Nations and fair rules that everybody has to follow. And they believe that countries should not be interfered with, and they should be allowed to pick their own path. The United States, meanwhile, says it has the right, under the Truman Doctrine, to interfere in any country's internal affairs if we don't like who you elect. I'll say that again. The American stance is that we can invade your country anywhere in the world if we don't like who your politicians are. That's the Truman Doctrine. Here's what it says according to the State Department. The United States would provide political, military, and economic assistance to all democratic nations under threat from external or internal authoritarian forces. Whatever the fuck that means. The United States of America, since 1947, has asserted the right to interfere in every single country's internal affairs. How many people think that's okay? How many people think that is legitimate? The Monroe Doctrine was that no country but the United States was a power in the Western Hemisphere. There's now what they're calling the Trump corollary to the Monroe document. Trump corollary to, yeah, here we go. This is now being published. A Trump doctrine. We take a look at President Trump's emerging foreign policy. Barely 48 hours after toppling the leader of Venezuela and asserting U.S. rights to the country's oil, President Trump threatened Colombia with a similar fate. He declared that Cuba was not worth invading because it's ready to fall, and he once again claimed that Greenland needed to come under American control. He seems to feel emboldened after the quick capture of Nicolas Maduro, the strongman who was seized on narco trafficking charges. We're in charge of Venezuela, Trump claimed, as he described his plans to breathe new life in the Monroe Doctrine, the 1823 foundational statement of U.S. claims over the Western Hemisphere. The Monroe Doctrine is a big deal, says Trump, who keeps a pensive portrait of the fifth U.S. president near his desk in the Oval Office. But we've superseded it by a lot, a real lot. He called his update, named after himself, the Monroe Doctrine. Trump talks in blunt declarations. A more nuanced vision is described on page 15 of the Trump administration's 2-month-old national security strategy, a document that appears to have been written with this moment in American territorial adventurism in mind. Guys, we call this, there's a shorter word, chat, imperialism. Why use two words when one word will do? Let's go to page 15. A Western Hemisphere, the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. After years of neglect, the United States will reassert and enforce the Monroe Doctrine to restore American preeminence in the Western Hemisphere and to protect our homeland and our access to key geographies throughout the region. We will deny non-hemispheric competitors the ability to position forces or other threatening capabilities or to own or control strategically vital assets in our hemisphere. This Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine is a common sense and potent restoration of American power and priorities consistent with American security interests. Our goals for the Western Hemisphere can be summarized as enlist and expand. We will enlist established friends in the hemisphere to control migration, stop drug flows, and strengthen stability and security on land and sea. We will expand by cultivating and strengthening new partners while bolstering our own nation's appeal as the hemisphere's economic and security partner of choice. American policy should focus on enlisting regional champions that can help create tolerable stability in the region, even beyond those partners' borders. These nations will help us stop illegal and destabilizing migration, neutralize cartels, nearshore manufacturing, and develop local private economies, among other things. We will reward and encourage the region's governments, political parties, and movements broadly aligned with our principles and strategies. But we must not overlook governments with different outlooks with whom we nonetheless share interests and who want to work with us. The United States may reconsider our military presence in the Western Hemisphere. That means 4 obvious things: a readjustment of our global military presence to address urgent threats in our own hemisphere, especially the missions identified in this strategy, and away from theaters whose relative import to American national security has declined in recent decades or years. A more suitable Coast Guard and Navy presence to control sea lanes, to thwart illegal and other unwanted migration, to reduce human and drug trafficking, and control transit routes in a crisis. Targeted deployments to secure the border and defeat cartels, including, where necessary, the use of lethal force to replace the failed law enforcement-only strategy of the last several decades, and establishing or expanding access at strategically important locations. Some foreign influence will be hard to reverse given the political alignments between certain Latin American governments and certain foreign actors. However, many governments are not ideologically aligned with foreign powers, but are instead attractive doing business with them for other reasons, including low costs and fewer regulatory hurdles. The United States has achieved success in rolling back outside influence in the Western Hemisphere by demonstrating with specificity how many hidden costs and espionage, cybersecurity, debt traps, and other ways are embedded in allegedly low-cost foreign assistance. We should accelerate these efforts, including by utilizing U.S. leverage in finance and technology to induce countries to reject such assistance. In other words, what they're going to do is they're going to use America's control of the financial system to prevent countries from partnering with, say, China to develop, say, renewable energy. In the Western Hemisphere and everywhere in the world, the United States should make clear that American goods, services, and technologies are far better buy in the long run because they are higher quality and do not come with the same kind of strings as other countries' assistance. That said, we will reform our own system to expedite approvals and licensing, again, to make ourselves the partner of first choice. This choice of all countries should face is whether they want to live in an American-led world of sovereign countries and free economies, or in a parallel one in which they are influenced by countries on the other side of the world. Sovereign countries, and we kidnap your president. Huh? Where was I? What video? Where was the video I was watching? Because they were talking about this. God damn it. I guess we were watching this.
With this news, the United States has seized Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro after U.S. forces launched what President Trump called a large-scale attack. Maduro and his wife were flown out of Venezuela, expected to be brought to New York. They've been criminally charged. Just before we recorded this, President Trump spoke saying, "We're going to run the country until such time we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition." In an interview with Fox, Trump said the U.S. will be very strongly involved in the Venezuelan oil industry. Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves. It's unclear how many Venezuelans were killed in the operation, which was carried out with the help of the CIA and U.S. Delta Force soldiers. The U.S. attack has been widely criticized around the world. The Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva wrote on X, "The bombings on Venezuelan territory and the capture of its president draw an unacceptable line. They cross an unacceptable line. These acts represent a grave affront to Venezuela's sovereignty and yet another extremely dangerous precedent for the entire international community," unquote. Mexico's Ministry of Foreign Affairs condemned the attack as a clear violation of Article 2 of the Charter of the United Nations. Congressmember Greg Casar, chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus, wrote, "Has no right to take us to war with Venezuela. This is reckless and illegal. Congress should vote immediately on a war powers resolution to stop him," Congressmember Casar said. We're joined right now by Miguel Tinker Salas, Emeritus Professor of History at Pomona College in Claremont. He is the author of The Enduring Legacy, Oil, Culture, and Society in Venezuela, as well as Venezuela, What Everyone Needs to Know. We're also joined on the ground in Caracas by Andreina Chavez, reporter there. Her piece earlier this week for Drop Site News, War of the Entire People. But before we go to our guests, Juan Gonzalez, you were there in Panama. It was 35 years ago today that Manuel Noriega was seized by U.S. forces and brought to the United States. And it's a month after President Trump pardoned a man who was convicted in this country of narco trafficking, the former president of Honduras, Juan Orlando Hernandez. Your thoughts?
Yes, Amy. Well, this is an extraordinary moment in what is clearly, and by international law, a completely illegal military action by the United States. But in listening to the press conference that President Trump and his top aides held just a little while ago, a few things stand out to me. One is the size of this attack, and we didn't really get a sense of that until General Dan Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has had an opportunity to talk, and he mentioned over 150 of the most advanced military aircraft of the United States participated in this basically a Air Force invasion of of Venezuela. And in addition to the Delta Force and CIA operatives that were on the ground, a blackout of Caracas that the United States triggered in order to be able to operate in complete darkness, and the admission by both the general and President Trump that there was a lot of opposition of Venezuelan forces on the ground to the U.S. attack. That's one thing, the size of this attack. The second, as you mentioned, is Trump's claim that the United States is going to run Venezuela from now on, and that this was not just a question of extracting Maduro for supposed alleged drug crimes, but also a regime change operation that the United States is going to directly run Venezuela. And I thought the most interesting thing of all was Trump's claim late in the press conference that Marco Rubio has been in conversations with the current vice president, Delcy Rodriguez, and that according to Trump, she told Rubio, quote, "We'll do whatever you need," as if implying that Delcy Rodriguez, the vice president and clearly the successor to Maduro, was in some way or other agreeing to this U.S. intervention, or at least acknowledging it. So I think that those are the three things that stuck out to me. We'll have to see in the next few hours and days to what degree some of these claims of Trump are actually factual.
Well, these developments of the last hours have been stunning. We want to go first to Caracas, to Andreina Chavez. If you can talk about how people are responding, what we have seen, the images of different cities of Venezuela being bombed, attacked, a large-scale attack, as President Trump put it, by the United States.
Yes, so first of all, I just want to say that President Nicolas Maduro, he wasn't captured, he wasn't seized, he wasn't arrested, he was kidnapped. This is a kidnapping. The United States has just kidnapped a constitutionally elected president. So this is something that it goes beyond our wildest imagination. This is something terribly against international law, against all principles of sovereignty, of self-determination of the people. So this is something that we need to clarify. Second, these comments that President Trump and his government are saying that they are negotiating with the government of Venezuela, we should not believe those claims. None of that has been confirmed. Vice President Delcy Rodriguez, she has very clearly stated the message right now is to resist. The message right now is to go to the streets, is to fight against this imperialist aggression, is to denounce this imperialist aggression. And there is no such thing, such transition or vacuum power happening right now. Right now, we are fighting against this aggression. So we need to treat these claims by the Trump administration mostly as psychological operations to try to debilitate even more the Venezuelan government that is still standing, that is still here. We need to remember that we still have a Venezuelan government, even though President Maduro has just been kidnapped. Second, as you said, we just experienced a quite horrifying night. We woke up around 2 a.m. to the sound of extremely loud explosions. Of course, at the moment, we didn't know what was happening. Everybody knew it was something terrible because it sounded like an earthquake, like the sky was falling down. I could hear the planes. I couldn't see them, but I could hear the planes. I live very close to Miraflores, so I imagine that is why I could actually hear all these military operations happening around me. And we immediately got confirmation from the Venezuelan government that at least 7 points of Caracas had been attacked, at least 7 places between civilian places and military complex. There were also attacks in places like Estado La Guaira, Aragua, Miranda. All these places were attacked. After that, we got even more confirmation from the defense minister, Vladimir Padrino Lopez, who said that indeed we were under an imperialist military aggression from the United States, and that the call right now for the Venezuelan people was to just remain calm, but also to remember that we need to fight back against this regime change, because at the end of the day, we need to remember that this is regime change. We have to remember that the U.S. has been peddling a lie about Venezuela, about the Venezuelan government being a drug cartel, about the Venezuelan government being involved in drug trafficking, using evidence that is not credible at all. not even using evidence. At the most, they're just using a court in New York to say that President Maduro is involved in narco trafficking without actually presenting evidence that he is doing that. There is absolutely no credible evidence that there is a Venezuelan state that is involved in a high-structured drug trafficking corporation. That is not true. They have been using that lie first to kill people in small vessels in the Caribbean, and now to bomb Venezuela and to kidnap the Venezuelan president. So right now we're facing a regime change, and I think that is the first thing that people need to have in mind, that Venezuela is being bombed. We're facing a regime change. President Trump just said it. He said that right now he's going to run Venezuela. The United States has decided that they're going to control Venezuela from now on. They're going to control Venezuela's oil business from now on. If this was actually something about capturing a supposed narco-trafficking person, then why wouldn't that just mean that the Venezuelan government continues? We have a vice president who constitutionally is mandated to now take power. But no, he's not saying that. He's saying that anybody who remains loyal to the Bolivarian process is going to go down. He's saying that there might be more military operations. And he's saying that now the United States is going to assign people to control the Venezuelan government. And the first thing that he's going to do, power over the Venezuelan oil industry. And remember that he says the Venezuelan oil industry wasn't working right, that he was going to make it finally work right. But you need to remember that the Venezuelan oil industry has been under U.S. sanctions for almost a decade.
Let us bring Professor Tinker Salas into this conversation. You were born in Venezuela. Your books are about Venezuela. You woke up to this news as well. You're based right now in California. If you can respond to these points, and especially what Andreina is talking about, the U.S. will now run Venezuela. Until such time as there is a just transition. Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, saying that Maduro was given plenty of chances to step down, but in fact, he's a wild man, he said.
Yeah, the spectacle of that press conference is amazing. It looked like something out of a Hollywood movie set.
Sorry about that, Chad.
A B movie set. This is the Pirates of the Caribbean. This is Marco Rubio, now the Viceroy of Venezuela. This is an effort to run Venezuela with 15,000 troops. That's utterly impossible. There is a government in Venezuela. There's a people in Venezuela.
I mean, it really depends. Like, I hear what he's saying. And if the Venezuelan people, or a significant faction of them, are willing to fight, the United States is not going to be able to do it. But I'm not from Venezuela, so I can't read. I don't know. I know it's a bit late after you cover the CIA drug trafficking, but there's a former Secretary of Public Security of Mexico under President Felipe Calderon meeting with State Department and CIA and more. He was convicted of drug trafficking in the U.S. as well and is held in Brooklyn. Wait, really? They're going to release another narco trafficker? U.S. officials and Mexican ex-lawman convicted of corruption met often, records show. He filed a new trial bid saying that former Mexican official met with U.S. officials more than 180 times and was also extensively vetted by the CIA and DEA. Oh, yeah. When Genario Garcia Luna, who once served as the architect of Mexico's war on drugs, was found guilty last winter of taking millions of dollars from the drug lords he was meant to be pursuing, one question lingered from his trial was just how closely he had interacted with the United States officials at the times he was supposedly taking bribes. He met 24 times with American ambassadors, 8 times with the Attorney General, 15 times with CIA officials, and 50 times with the DEA.
This was a kidnapping of a government in Venezuela. The reality is that we've seen this before. We've seen this in Panama. We've seen this throughout the history of Latin America, whether Nicaragua, whether Haiti, whether Mexico. The reality here is very clearly Trump made this about oil. He says that what they do want to run is not the country. What they do want to run is the oil fields. And that's the central part of this discussion. I think we need to keep an eye on that ball. And I think that the other part of this is it's clearly a message internally for U.S. politics with a view towards midterm elections. The U.S. can impose its will. We saw that clearly in the national security strategy documents that were revealed a couple of weeks ago, where the U.S. will control the Western Hemisphere. The U.S. will impose its will. The message is clear for Mexico. The message is clear for Brazil. The message is clear for everywhere in Latin America. What we've seen here is an effort at regime change. And we heard this before. We heard this in Iraq when Bush said that the oil production in Iraq will pay for the intervention. Well, that didn't happen in Iraq, and it won't happen in Venezuela. This is about regime change. This is about establishing U.S. dominance. This is about the U.S. regaining control and excluding China and Russia. And imagine what Putin must be thinking, or Xi Jinping, about zones of influence. Well, if the U.S. can exert its role in the Caribbean, well, why shouldn't Russia exert its role in Ukraine? Why shouldn't China exert its role in Taiwan? The dimensions of this are incredible, and I think this is an unreal act at a time where the countries of Latin America now will be threatened.
And Miguel, I wanted to ask you, repeatedly during the press conference, President Trump talked about, and he has said so now for weeks, that Venezuela stole our oil, stole the U.S. oil, and that the United States is getting it back. Could you talk about some of this history, because this is a complete fabrication of what the historical record. The main nationalization of Venezuelan oil occurred not under Maduro, not under Chavez or any of the Bolivarian revolution, socialist revolution, but occurred in 1976 under Carlos Andrés Pérez, and it was only Chavez that then further move forward on the nationalization. Could you talk about that history and how this is a complete misrepresentation of what has happened with Venezuela?
Venezuela knew the existence of oil before the Europeans or the Americans arrived. The very first oil industry was 1870s in the Alquitrana in the state of Táchira, where Venezuelans ran their own oil operation. They exploited it, they developed it. Having no infrastructure, they really couldn't promote it. And the lack of internal combustion engines meant that they couldn't really develop it. The oil that was discovered profusely in 1922 in Cabimas, in La Rosa. It was run by, at that time, British and Dutch companies. Venezuela eventually nationalized its oil industry in 1975, taking effect in 1976. It was controlled by Venezuelans. It was run by Venezuelans, and it was fully compensated. The American companies and the Dutch companies and the American companies and the British were fully compensated, much above and beyond what they had already extracted out of the ground in huge amounts of profits. For ExxonMobil, for example, Standard Oil Company of New Jersey, Creole Petroleum was its most profitable subsidiary. It maintained that entire operation of Standard Oil, which is today ExxonMobil. What Chavez did in 2006 and 7 was to close the back door that was left open in Article 5 of the reform for nationalization in 1976, which had allowed other existing oil companies to proceed in Venezuela as partners and operating with PDVSA. He imposed on those companies the joint ventures, but they had to include PDVSA, which is the Venezuelan Petroleum Corporation. So Trump is utterly wrong, utterly lying when he says that the oil companies were stolen from the Americans. They were fully compensated. They had received compensation over and over and over, in addition to what they had extracted in profits out of Venezuela previously. But we go back to the old Juan Pablo Pérez Alfonso, the minister of the petroleum in Venezuela in the 1960s, that said oil is the excrement of the devil. And once again, Trump has proven that.
Adriana, I can see that you've been nodding your head.
New reports saying nobody knows what the fuck is going on in Venezuela.
I want to bring in MS Now reporter David Noriega, who is live for us in Bogota, Colombia, and MS Now military analyst retired Colonel Jack Jacobs. David, you're there on the ground in South America. What's the reaction from Venezuela's neighbors?
Well, Anna, the reaction here in Bogota, the capital of Colombia, to Trump's pretty strikingly overt threats to follow up with the actions of the last 48 hours with similar actions here in Colombia has been one of combined outrage and alarm. I've been in touch with a couple of people inside the government of Colombian President Gustavo Petro, people close to Petro, who say that they are taking these threats extremely seriously. A couple of things to take into consideration here, Ana. First is the fact that Petro, unlike Maduro, is a perfectly legitimately democratically elected president with a substantial base of popular support in the country. The second thing to take into account is that he's actually nearing the end of his term. He only has a few months left in office. What that means is that there are elections coming up very soon, congressional elections in March and presidential elections in May. The fear here, concretely, is that if the left-wing party, the party of Gustavo Petro, is on track to win in those elections, which some polling suggests it's pretty well positioned to do so, then the United States will, in one way or another, intervene. So it's not, even if it doesn't take the form of like a direct military intervention or the kind of operation we saw in Venezuela, there is a clear sense here in the government and among the people that the U.S. could very well be meddling directly in Colombian affairs. As for Venezuelans, Anna, I've been speaking to a number of people inside Venezuela.
Democracy is when you vote for the far-right party or else we invade your country or ruin your economy. That's what democracy means now. Democracy means you have to let the most evil, dumb motherfuckers in a country run it, or else the U.S. will intervene. Now, I gotta tell you something, chat. If you're a Colombian and you're voting for the right way because America threatens you, you're a fucking worm. You're a fucking worm. Americans were fucking worms for allowing this bald, obese fuck run our country. The pathetic nature of the American people is shocking to behold. But if you want to live under our boot, cuck yourself. If Petro's party doesn't win, I mean, that's just embarrassing. Do you want to be an American dog?
As well, and there is a profound feeling of uncertainty about what comes next. And about what
Misanthropy
this,
from the left's perspective is valid.
New sort of regime formation of Delcy Rodriguez and some of other key regime figures in the Maduro government, whether they're going to be able to hold on to power for very much longer, and if they don't, the kinds of chaos that is likely to ensue between different factions of the government, armed, paramilitary, and criminal groups. If that happens, it will inevitably spill over into Colombia, and there is some profound concern about that possibility here as well, Anna.
David Noriega on the ground in Bogota. Thank you. Colonel, we just heard the president there at the top talk about Colombia and Mexico, even Greenland, threatening essentially U.S.
Cuba
could take action. Right, Cuba as well. I mean, you even have other members, sort of an extension of the administration, also kind of discussing this and encouraging it. It was the wife of Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller who posted this, a map of Greenland draped in an American flag with the word soon. We've heard the president make this defense argument. When it comes to Greenland, should Denmark be concerned?
Well, Denmark is concerned. As a matter of fact, it's interesting to talk about Greenland because it's very...
Mike, I need advice. I'm waiting on an Asmold watching buddy to give you a lift home, and I'm wondering if it's safe to assume the military action is going to go to shit. Asmund is going to change his opinion again. Stop listening to FFs. Asmund Gold said he was anti-Venezuelan war, and now he's in favor of it. If your friend is not calling him out by now, he may be brain dead. Also, how do you have a friend who watches the dumbest motherfucker on the planet? Asmund Gold is dumber than fucking dirt.
Very much different than all the other countries we've been discussing in the Western Hemisphere. Greenland is part of the Kingdom of Denmark, and Denmark is a founding member of NATO, as we are. And if the perception is, and the reality is, that the United States is going to breach the sovereignty of a fellow alliance member in NATO, it means that NATO itself goes to pieces altogether, which I guess should be pretty good news to people like Vladimir Putin. But so this is extremely dangerous, not just in talk, but surely in execution.
And we heard the president and other members of the administration talk about how they intended to send a message of being tough, don't mess with us or else. And I'm paraphrasing that, obviously. But I do wonder, what do you think is the message received by other authoritarian leaders and adversaries of the U.S.? Will they get that tough talk? Is it sort of showing strength, this move?
Well, countries like China, for example, and Russia do not need any encouragement to do the kinds of things that they're doing. But it certainly will be a warning to those in those regions. So take, for example...
China's already responding to this. And they're responding by doing something very simple. Electrifying their economy, investing in renewable energy and nuclear power. They are making themselves uninterested in oil. That is what they're doing. Now, it's going to take them a couple decades to get to carbon neutrality because they rely on domestic coal because they're trying to prevent themselves from relying on oil as much as possible. That is the way that China is responding. They're also building up their own navy so they can push the United States back so they can have free access into the ocean. That is the Chinese plan. I heard Adam Conover say that Asmongold is the enfeebled child locked to the roof for those who walk away from MLS. Do you agree? No. By the way, chat, if Asmongold was that child, I would not walk away. I would consider that to be utopia. If Asmongold was the child, I would consider that to be utopia. I would be dancing in the streets. Normally I'd walk away, but now that I know Asmongold, I would be like, this is the best. Chat, if you don't know what I'm talking about, that is a story by Ursula Le Guin about the idea of a perfect society, except the one flaw in the society. Imagine your most perfect, fully automated luxury gay space communism. It's Star Trek world. There's no crime, disease, poverty, or war. Everybody reaches their full potential. There's happiness. Everything's great, except for one flaw. They have to keep one child in a dungeon to be tortured and starved and kept barely alive, or else the society will collapse. So it's a perfect society, except there's this one child who's kept in ignorance and lives a life of pure suffering. Would you accept that deal? And I have always said no. I think that I would be focused on ending that child's suffering. You are a person, you're quote, a person who walks away, right? Except if it's Asmongold, in which case I'm enjoying the free fajitas.
The threat of China taking over Taiwan. It's perceived by a lot of people that ultimately, all things being equal, Taiwan may in fact, without
weird
military
fantasy. No, it's called a joke based on being literate. I understand that you'll never understand a joke. The joke is that I wouldn't accept it. But Asmongold is such a piece of shit that it's like he would deserve that punishment. But it's a joke because it's an absurd joke. It's an absurd reaction. It's an absurd, hyperbolic over-exaggeration of a literary reference that you're too dumb to know. I can only dumb it down so far. And by dumbing it down, I kind of stripped it of its literary heft. Because once you take something that's interesting thought and then you bring Asmongold into it, it becomes dumb as fuck. It's like throwing shit on the Mona Lisa.
action become part of China for a wide variety of economic and demographic reasons. But the kinds of things that we're talking about now, about the use of the military instrument of power to take over, let's say, the Western Pacific or part of the Western Pacific, causes countries, allies of ours like Japan, for example, to take a completely different look at how they've been operating since the end of the Second World War. So the Japanese Constitution precludes the use of military force by Japan, external to Japan. Well, they're changing their minds altogether about that because the perception is that the United States is not going to come to their aid. In fact, Japan is talking openly about acquiring nuclear weapons so that it can defend itself. All this does, all the current events here, all they've done is exacerbate those kinds of tensions and objectives in vast areas of the world.
Such huge global repercussions could come from this move. Colonel Jack Jacobs, thank you for your expertise. We appreciate you as always.
China already said they will not let Japan get nukes. I mean, listen, I'm as much of a China glazer as you could possibly be. If Japan wants to have nukes, they could make nukes in approximately 5 minutes. They have a robust nuclear program. They have the highly enriched materials. It wouldn't even take them. It would take them a matter of months at the most to develop to build a bomb. It would not be challenging whatsoever. Japan doesn't have nukes because they don't want nukes. If they ever change their mind, they'll have nukes in 5 minutes. There's really no way to stop that. China has nukes, right? How do I explain? China has nukes, yes. China has nukes, yes. I'm as loud as I can be, chat. The hip firing, chat. So China developed a nuclear weapon because the United States of America and China fought in the Korean War. And when China was defeated, caused the U.S. Marines to have their worst ever defeat in history, there was strong pressure in the United States to nuke China's mainland. So try to develop their own nuclear weapon. We've watched this movie before. Let me see if I can find. Let me see. Hold on, chat. The worst ever modern U.S. defeat. This is MacArthur. He said the war would be over by Christmas. There's a really funny scene in this movie with Mao. Oh yeah, this was a really brutal battle, chat. It was like, what was the temperature? It was like 10 below or 20 below, and people were like freezing to death on both sides. Hold on, there's one scene where an American general is like retreating, and they come across like a position of Chinese soldiers that is completely frozen to death. Here it is.
Sir, you've got to see this.
Show me.
I remember now. Negative 30, yeah. This is about the Marines' biggest defeat. I think they call it, I think Americans call it the Battle of Chojin Reservoir. I think this movie is Battle at Lake Changjin. That's the Chinese name for it. There's this Marine general that the Chinese are always like, that they respect. Who's this character? Who's always like, no, we should take the Chinese seriously. They're tough fighters. So that's the character.
Fighting against men with such strong will like this, we were not ordained to win.
The Marines still cope over this one. There's a famous quote where they said, oh, Marines never retreat. So the Marines were retreating and they're like, we're not retreating. We're advancing in a different direction. It's like a quote that the Marines still tell themselves. We are not retreating. Quote. Oh, here we go. Retreat. Hell, we're not retreating. We're just advancing in a different direction. famously uttered by U.S. Marine Major General Oliver P. Smith during Korean War's Battle of Chosin Reservoir when encircled by Chinese forces, symbolizing Marine tenacity and turning a tactical withdrawal into an offensive tactical withdrawal. The cope overload. Now remember, chat, this is America at the peak of its post-World War II power versus China at their basically weakest. They just fought a fucking brutal civil war after 15 years of Japanese aggression as well. The country was a fucking wreck. And then they almost stomped the US completely. But ultimately the US was able to fight them to a draw. And from the Chinese perspective, their goal was protect North Korea from being overtaken. And they succeeded. The second Sino war was really tough on China. The reason why I don't think Americans really reckon with the enemy, making enemy of China, is so insane and dumb as fuck and actually frustrating as hell that Americans are delusional about, is one, there's just a lot more Chinese people than there are Americans, number one. That's just number one, numero uno, number one. The second thing is their economy is bigger. So when you have a country that has a bigger economy, can produce more weapons and more weapons faster, and there's a lot more of them, we can't win. It's dumb as fuck to attack them. Dumb pieces of shit. The second thing is they are actually, like, you know, proud of their country. They're actually proud at how things are getting better. So they believe there's something to fight for, as opposed to our country where what are we fighting for? Fucking oil? We're very overweight. Each American counts as 3 to 4 Chinese pound for pound. No, that's not true. Chinese are getting a little bit plumper. Some of America's eating stuff is going over to China. That being said, Chinese fat prisons. We just saw this. Overweight adults are signing up for Chinese military-style fat prisons where fitness can be fatal. As obesity rates soar in China, overweight adults are voluntarily signing up for so-called fat prisons. These military-style boot camps are designed for rapid weight loss through strict diets, relentless exercise, and round-the-clock surveillance that prevents participants from leaving or sneaking in snacks. In your 20s, you will invest $600 in yourself to lose weight at an all-inclusive Chinese fat prison for 28 days. It's very important that you take that offer. They're trying to make propaganda off of people's fucking social media posts. What we do it is put on TV and called The Biggest Loser, and it's like one of our most successful trash TV shows. If I had the money and time, I would put myself in fat prison. It's $600 for a month, and that includes housing and food. Fuck, I might sign up for the fat prison just so I have a cheap rent. All right, where were we? Donald Trump, he did a gaggle this morning. He did a gaggle with the press.
Hi, Mr. President. You came from a different way this time.
Yeah, a little bit different. We have some good people. We have Senator Lindsey Graham.
Hello, everybody.
We have Howard Lutnick.
I love how Donald Trump is just a neocon now. Like, I posted this the other day, but all the neocons left the Republican Party and became Never Trump Republicans because they thought that that Trump wasn't gonna fight wars. They bought the idea that Trump was the peace president just as much as the American people did. So they became Democrats because they were like, they're still the warmonger party. And now all the Never Trump Republicans are just sitting outside, and they can't they're so mad they're missing the fun. They're so mad that they picked wrong. They thought that Donald Trump was sincere and wanting to like dismantle NATO and like not do wars. And they left the Republican Party, and all the neocons who didn't leave the Republican Party are having a blast because Donald Trump is a neocon. Lindsey Graham is a real neocon. He really stuck it out. Lindsey Graham is just a Republican politician who stayed in office long enough to see Trump become the neocon he always was. Trump was in favor of the Iraq war. He was lying about being a peace dove president. But the Democrats are so fucking dumb and so worthless that instead of supporting the 70% of Americans who hate the war in Venezuela, they try to appeal to the 30% warmonger fascists.
Commerce. We have Steve Miller. We have a lot of people. We have Aaron. We have a lot of people. Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. President.
Damn, another Edigermentum pick sucks. Wow, Chris Van Hollen, what's he saying? Remember the other day, chat, when all you dumb liberals were glazing Chris Van Hollen and I said, shut the fuck up, he sucks? You guys remember that? Well, let's take a look.
Purely on the question of war powers, does the president have the legal authority to do what he's doing?
No, he does not. I mean,
You're on the Appropriations Committee. You've got power. What can you do about it?
Well, I worked with Senator Merkley already to offer a resolution in the United States Senate to cut off any U.S. taxpayer dollars to fund an attack against Venezuela. Republicans blocked us from doing it. So, yes, we will continue to push. In fact, I'm sure we're going to have a vote on a war powers resolution, probably as early as this week, if not next. Last time we offered those, Margaret, Republicans voted no, all but one or two. Senator Paul voted with us, maybe one other. But for the most part, Republicans are happy to give Donald Trump a blank check and
I will say that this is as good as it gets with Democrats.
Surrender their constitutional responsibilities to Donald Trump.
Senator Van Hollen, a lot more to talk to you about. Thank you very much for.
Okay, that was a bad clip, Chatter. You didn't watch the clip. You gave me the wrong clip, Chatter. If that's the clip, he was fine. That was fine. That was fine. The fuck? We texted 1,000 Americans about U.S. actions in Venezuela. I haven't looked at this at all. I'm gonna guess it breaks down on partisan lines. Republicans clap like seals and say, yeah, based about whatever Trump does. I will say Chris Van Hollen has been getting better. You know what? I do want to give him credit for being one of the senators that seems to be getting smarter over the years, which is rare. He's still not one of us, so I don't support people that are not one of us for president. I only support people that are open socialists for candidate for president. I will never pick anyone who's to the right of AOC. AOC is the minimum. And if you don't like AOC, you better be talking about somebody to her left, which I want to give you a hint. There isn't anyone who could reasonably be president. And if that person pops up, I'll switch support to them immediately. But you can't be like, I hate AOC. That's why I like JB Pritzker or Chris Van Hollen or something like that. If you're one of those people, you're a dumb piece of shit. Also, I want to call out my fellow dirtbag leftists who think that AOC is cringe. I'm sorry. I've listened to your podcast. You're fucking cringe. Okay? Stop trying to pretend like you're cool. You play Fortnite, Felix. You're not less cringe than AOC, okay? Like, can you stop acting like you're cooler than AOC? You're the same level of millennial cringe. There's nothing worse than people that are like mid to young millennials who are trying to like relate to Gen Z. It is legitimately embarrassing. Stop. You're old now. You're middle fucking aged. Stop. AOC is cringe, but so is the entire millennial generation. There's never been a cool millennial. They don't exist. Every millennial is cringe. But guess what? That's great. It means that you believe in something and you enjoy shit and you have a personality. That's what being cringe means. It means you're brave enough to have a personality. Cringe is subjective. That's my point. When I see what you like to do, I cringe. But at least you have a fucking personality. And I like that. Cope. There's nothing worse than Gen Z because they organize their entire life around not looking cringe on social media, which is the most cringe way to live. There's nothing more cringe than trying to be nonchalant on social media. Nobody thinks you're cool, man. Repressing yourself because you're worried of getting called cringe is fucking cringer than anything. I'd rather see a purple-haired SJW having a freak out because at least they believe in something than a Gen Zer, I guess, hitting themselves in the face with a hammer so they can mew more or whatever the fuck. Clavicular or whatever the name of your listen to the social media guys they're listening to. Fucking like Andrew Tate. Like, what are we doing here? Clavicular, that's the guy's name. Thank you. I'm a looks-maxing. God damn, I wish I could transport all of Gen Z to experience 1 week in my high school in 2001. Just 1 week in 2001 in the lunchroom. And no one will ever say looks-maxers are masculine ever again. Looks-maxing it's just so crazy how the theater kids have somehow convinced an entire generation that being concerned about your physical appearance is masculine. That's crazy. That's crazy. Rule by the insecure theater kid is not going well, which is what Donald Trump is, by the way. Like, Donald Trump is the perfect Gen Z president. He really is. Okay, we're going off track here. Let's get back to what I was saying. Americans texting about Venezuela. Okay. What do Americans think about U.S. military operation that captured Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro? What role should the U.S. have in deciding how the country is governed? The poll finds Americans are evenly split between approval and disapproval of the U.S. sending forces to capture Maduro, although most say the operation should have required congressional approval. The public is skeptical about the U.S. taking control of Venezuela's government or deciding its leadership. 40% approve, 42% disapprove, unsure 18. Wow. We need to stop the drug cartels. This is a start. I don't want the US getting involved in another completely unnecessary war. Hey, wow, look at that, chat. A 30-year-old, they're smart. Meanwhile, 68-year-old Republican is brain dead. What a surprise. Maduro was an illegitimate president. He refused to yield power to the legitimate winner. This is so funny. This is like legitimately funny. Our number one oil ally is fucking Saudi Arabia and the UAE. They're fucking monarchies that we set up. We do not care about democracy. Can we stop with this? This is just like, what is this? What is this? What is this? What the fuck is this? Well, you see, that oil monarchy is legitimate because America says so. I generally dislike the U.S. intervening in other countries and affairs, and especially dislike attempting regime change. It hasn't been successful in the past. 37-year-old Republican Texas man. Is it good for the people of Venezuela? But it is good for the people of Venezuela, but are we doing it for the right reasons? Massachusetts woman, 66, independent. Are boomers? What is wrong with them? No! He said we're doing it for the oil. Why are you asking a question? He said he was doing it to steal the oil. He said it out loud. Why are you asking questions like there's not an answer already? Trump said we're stealing the oil. It's almost like Democrats, like liberals like to pretend like what's happening is not happening. They're fantasizing they're living in West Wing world or something. Donald Trump said he's doing it for the fucking oil. This shows Trump is not bluffing. His words now have more importance. I feel like our president is inciting violence and making our country vulnerable. He didn't incite violence. He ordered violence. He didn't incite it. He directly ordered it. Me from the midwits. Save me from the midwits. I can't. Midwits. Okay, Mike, people don't know what words actually mean. They just have a sense of what they mean. And they will use them in little strings. She doesn't know what inciting actually means. She just has heard the phrase inciting violence, so she's using inciting violence. She doesn't know what that actually means because those words are beyond her. They're just like kind of in the vocabulary, but not quite. All right. I only approve if a truly democratic government can be installed.
Joining us here purely on the question of war powers. Does the president?
I got a pee chat.
From Caracas. If you can talk about what President Trump said, that the oil companies will be funding this, and also the Nobel Peace Laureate Machado, who is outside the country right now, what this means, where she is. They said they are not bringing her back right now, and that Marco Rubio, Andreina, has been talking with Delcy Rodriguez, as you pointed out.
Yes, so there's this claim that Marco Rubio has been talking with Delcy Rodriguez, and as I said before, we don't have actual confirmation that that is happening. They have also claimed that they were negotiating with President Maduro. They have made a lot of claims, and we know now those are not true. If there was any kind of negotiation with President Maduro, then they wouldn't have kidnapped him in the middle of the night while bombing the entire country. So we know that the United States government lies, either because they want to create this psychological operation against the people, or because it is convenient for them to lie so people don't actually figure out what it is that they're doing. So there's no confirmation that there's any kind of negotiation happening, either with Delcy Rodriguez, who's the vice president, or other key figures in the government. All we know right now is that the government figures that are still standing, they are calling the people to resist and to go to the streets and to fight back against this regime change operation. And of course, there are also, I just came from near Miraflores. I was in a protest. People were there taking turns to speak on the microphone, and every single person was saying, we are not giving up. We are not giving up. We are going to demand that President Maduro is brought back. We're going to demand that we have proof of life of President Maduro and his wife, Silvia Flores. So people are not just waiting to see what plans the United States has for Venezuela. People are actually fighting against it and denouncing very publicly in the streets, saying this is not acceptable. We do not accept this because we elected a president, and the United States doesn't have any kind of authority to decide that Maduro has to be kidnapped, and that now they're going to appoint some kind of junta like the dictatorships from the past to now run Venezuela. When it comes to Maria Corina Machado, we don't really know. They have been very careful not to mention her. And I think that that proves that in a lot of ways they were actually sort of inflating her figure, trying to pose her as this kind of natural opposition figure who needed to take power in Venezuela eventually, but I don't think they were actually that committed to it.
I had to take a break. I had to take a break because this is so dumb that I think that this person, like, I can't say it. I think this person should have the right to vote revoked. I think this is so incredibly powerfully stupid that you can't be allowed to have any democratic power ever again. You need to be in a conservatorship immediately. I'm going to install a government that is truly democratic. I'm going to install a government that is democratic. I'm going to install a government that's democratic. Truly democratic government. I favor diplomacy, soft power, and economic sanctions over military intervention. You're a dumb piece of shit. Sanctions are acts of war. Sanctioning Venezuela is absolutely evil and wrong. And there's no justification for it. And we were sanctioning them well before there was any question about the fucking providence of the elections. Please stop. Shut up. I can understand the rationale of trying to stop the inflow of drugs, but it might set a bad precedent for other countries. Do you really think Nicolas Maduro had anything to do substantially with the flow of drugs? The answer is no. And only the dumbest pieces of shit buy this. I wouldn't be shocked if, as a way of trying to get around sanctions, Venezuela began to interact with various dark and gray market forces as a way of circumventing the control of the American sanctions. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened. But Venezuela is not a major conduit of drugs into America because, you know, they're sanctioned. Therefore, everything that comes from Venezuela is double and triple checked. I support our current president and trust that he has our country's best in mind when making these decisions. NPC. I do not believe the U.S. has the right to launch strikes and interfere in another country without a threat or congressional approval. Even if we had congressional approval, we would not have the right. That would be like if Congress says we could blow up a country, it's still wrong. But at least you're approximating a coherent thought. I think that cracking down on drug trafficking is good, but I have concerns that the strikes violate international laws. If you wanted to crack down on drug trafficking, we would invade Taiwan. Okay? If we want to crack down on drug trafficking, we would invade Langley, Virginia, and shut down the CIA. If we wanted to crack down on drug trafficking, we'd arrest Donald Trump's entire fucking inner circle in the national security area. Maduro was bad for America and for Venezuela. The motivation behind the attack, in my opinion, is very clear. Gaining access to resources. This is never an appropriate reason for any kind of an attack. It's not in your opinion. Donald Trump said it. He said, this is like somebody going, I'm going to murder you because you looked at my wife, and then shoots the guy and go, I don't know maybe it was an accident. I don't know why he did it. Why did he shoot the gun? Maybe it was a negligent discharge. Maybe it was I can't figure out his intent. The guy saying, I'm going to kill you. You looked at my wife. I have a gun. I'm pulling the trigger now for the purpose of murdering you. My opinion. Venezuela deserves freedom. I cannot think of a word that has less meaning in America than the word freedom. This word has now been stripped of all. It just doesn't mean anything. It's like an ape going, it's just a noise. It's just a noise. We should be attending to domestic matters first. I want to amend this, California man. We should be attending to domestic matters, period. Reactions to the operation split sharply among partisan lines, with 74% of Republicans supporting and 76% of Democrats disapproving. Slightly more independents disapprove than approve, with relatively large shares saying they're unsure. So in other words, even when everything went perfectly well and the special operations action worked perfectly, people still don't like it. Yo, Donald Trump, if the economy cracks or this starts going sideways in any way, right now, if Donald Trump is ever unlucky, it is so fucking over for the Republicans, it's not even funny. Was it appropriate for Trump to order the operation on his own, or should it have required approval from Congress? 37% approve, 63% congressional approval first. Every single person who is not a partisan hack dislike that Trump did it on his own. This is basically the entire area of people that would ever vote for a Democrat under any reason. This is the people that will never vote for a Democrat ever under any reason. That's all this means. More than 6 in 10 Americans say that the operation should have required approval from Congress, while fewer than 4 in 10 say it was appropriate for Trump to order the operation on his own. Republicans say Trump's actions were appropriate by a 3-to-1 margins, while large majorities of Democrats and independents say Congress should have to sign off. 70% of independents. Do you think the U.S. should or should not put Maduro on trial for drug trafficking? Should, 50%. And the aftermath of one of the most daring and successful special operations actions in American history, with the full flight of American media glazing, with every single alt-right influencer abandoning all of their faux populist anti-war positions in order to fillet Trump, they can only get to 50%. This, to me, chat, is the biggest evidence of how cooked the right is. With everything going their way, with everything operating better than they ever could have predicted, with no American soldiers killed, they got to 50%? Would you support or oppose the U.S. taking control of Venezuela and choosing a new government for the country? 45% opposed, 30% not sure, 24% support. Looking forward, the Post polls most find more Americans oppose than support the U.S. taking control of Venezuela and choosing a new government for the country, with a significant 30% saying they are unsure. Trump has said the United States will run the country for an unspecified period. Just under half of Republican support taking over Venezuela and deciding a new government for the country. Roughly 2 in 10 oppose this idea, while 1/3 are unsure. Support drops to 18% among independents and 9% among Democrats, with pluralities or majorities of both groups opposing it. In your opinion, who should decide the future leadership of Venezuela? The United States, 6%. The Venezuelan, 94%. The Venezuelan people. Chat, I want you to understand that if you're in the 94%, our elite do not agree. I would bet you if you go to the 6%, they are the rich. I would say that these people are conservatives. And I want you to understand something, chat. The 6%, that's the way the world is really working right now. If you're in the 94%, they say, fuck you. An overwhelming majority of Americans say the Venezuelan people should decide the leadership of the country, while only 6% say the U.S. should do so. There's bipartisan agreement on this question, with upwards of 9 in 10 Republicans, Democrats, and independents saying Venezuelans should choose their leaders. 9% of Republicans. Thanks for another reason to not sleep at night. 40% of the people approve that we attacked another country solely under the command of our 79-year-old president, suffering from dementia, kidnapped their leader, and now subjecting him to trial in the U.S. after we completely ignored an international law. Amazing. Yes, they're called Republicans. And what I'm trying to say, chat, is this is in many ways something that you need to understand about America. 40% of the country will never, ever, 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 ever support you. You just need to accept that. The best anybody has ever done in the popular vote in this country is 60%. That's always been the ceiling of progress in this country. It just so happens to be a massive majority. Who gives a fuck what they say? You will never convince these people. Good. Who gives a shit? You don't need them. But the Democratic Party is absolutely obsessed with getting support of Republicans. Who cares? They're a minority. Fuck them. I don't know if you guys saw this, but Mendacious Moldbug.
All right, well, let's talk about.
Has finally said he's jealous of China. Let me see. Did they read the tweet in the conversation? I guess not. I guess they never did. I wanted to show you this tweet. Mendacious Moldbug, the alt-right's thought leader, has finally admitted that America's inferior and China's better. And it's very funny. It was very funny. The alt-right's thought leader basically just said, we're jealous of the Communist Party of China. They're better. And it made me, I mean, it really is kind of funny. When did I reply to that guy? Fuck. God damn it. I'm so, and how did I reply to him? Hot off the press. What happened? Yeah, I know. We talked about that earlier. Thank you. Let me see if I can find Curtis Yarvin's Twitter account. Hold on, chat. Come on. Let me find it. I want to see the post. Did he delete it? Did he get made fun of too much? I just came back from Harbin, China. Looking forward to making China my home soon. To fucking hell with the US. Congratulations, man. Okay, chat. I'm gonna find this post. I swear to God I will. Searching on Twitter has now become hell. It's now become impossible to find anything on this shit fucking website. We're gonna find it. We're gonna find it, chat. We're gonna find it. Eventually it'll happen. Just hold. I give up. Twitter search literally does not work. It literally does not work. It's not even an old post of mine. It's like a couple days old. All right, well, I guess I'm done. Sounds like an air compressor and a massive fart. What are you talking about? Oh, the sound I made. It's quite funny when Americans found a better place. Instead of trying to make their place better, their first thought is just escape. Yes, because our country is pathetic. Is it this? Oh, thank God you found it. Jesus Christ. America needs a new... This is Curtis Yarvin, the alt-right's audacious mold bug. The alt-right's thought leader. America needs a new kind of political party, which is actually an old kind of party. A hard party. A hard party is a party designed to take unconditional control of the state. A hard party is a party in which all members delegate 100% of their political energy to the party's command. Joining a hard party is a political marriage, not an election night hookup with any random politician whose name on a lawn sign catches your eye. A hard party is a legal private organization whose goal is to become the ruling party of the next government, like the CCP in China. Its voters will elect this government. Its officers will staff it. Its donors will host its state dinners. Its ideas will become the official ideology, the official truth. They had better actually be true. A one-party state? Yes. We tried not having a one-party state. We ended up with a one-party state, right down to the DEI commissars in every office, public or private. It was a one-party state that pretended that it wasn't a one-party state. It was a one-party state, but not like the CCP or any Marxist-Leninist 20th century party run on Lenin's principle of democratic centralism. It was genuinely decentralized. This categorical distinction, while not without its virtues, was also not without its vices. Ultimately, it did not result in a more open society. In any case, only something can beat nothing. A decentralized one-party regime such as we today endure cannot be replaced by any new decentralized regime. One party, two party, or zero party. At least all attempts to do so have failed. And I cannot see any way to do it. Maybe I'm an idiot. I don't know. He's an idiot. I do see how to do it with a centralized party, though. Democratic centralism. As Deng Xiaoping said, who cares if a cat is black or white, so long as it catches mice? All we know is the cat we have doesn't catch mice. We don't seem to be able to train it to catch mice. Maybe this is because it's such a sweet and special cat. Maybe this is because it's not actually a cat, but a rabbit. Maybe we don't need a special cat. Maybe we just need a regular cat. It is a deflating realization, I know. Maybe we could get a regular cat, but have a rabbit too? Maybe. Maybe we're getting tired of finding mouse turds in our Cheerios. Maybe just start with the cat. So basically, what Curtis is saying here is that Donald Trump and the Republican Party are not winning. And the solution there is to have authoritarian control of the United States, right? But for the right wing, I guess, for the superior type of human. Now, the problem, Curtis, that you have is that all your ideas about superiority are fucking stupid, you dumb, deflated nerd. Look at yourself. You think you're superior to all human beings? The reason why the communists are going to win, why the socialists are going to win, is because they don't entertain dumb ideas like racial superiority, you dumb fuck. They have the humility of recognizing that every culture has unique and beneficial ideas, and they are shameless in copying what works. You are nothing but an ego, a deflated, embarrassed egomaniac. And because you have no achievements of your own, you have to cotton on to the achievements of race. So you make stupid decisions because you're dumb. Ultimately, the reason why the Chinese Communist Party has won is because they demand excellence. You don't get to join the Communist Party just because you declare yourself a communist and you raise your hand. You have to apply. You have to fight to be given the honor of CCP membership. It's like winning a scholarship or something. It's difficult to become a communist in China. Can you imagine having to fight to become a Democrat? They're handing out packs of cigarettes to make you register. They walk around, and if they find someone bending over with fentanyl, they'll hand them a carton of cigarettes and say, please register as a Democrat. That is the Democratic Party. We don't demand anything of you. We have no ideas. We're not fighting for anything. There is no principles. It's, will you vote for this grifter to take office so he can abuse the office for his own personal gain? That's what the Democratic Party stands for. It is a conspiracy of a small group of people to seize power for themselves. correction, winning a scholarship and work your ass off from a village for a start. Yeah, it's like getting into an Ivy League school. That's how hard it is to become a communist in China. You give the DNC far too much credit. Yeah, I guess so.
We're joined now by the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio. Mr. Secretary, thank you for joining us this morning. President Trump was pretty clear yesterday. He said the United States is going to run Venezuela. Under what legal authority?
Well, first of all, what's going to happen here is that we have a quarantine on their oil. That means their economy will not be able to move forward until the conditions that are in the national interest of the United States and the interest of the Venezuelan people are met. And that's what we intend to do. So that leverage remains, that leverage is ongoing, and we expect that it's going to lead to results here. We're hopeful that it does, positive results for the people of Venezuela, but ultimately, most importantly for us, in the national interest of the United States. We will no longer have, hopefully, as we move forward here, we'll set the conditions so that we no longer have in our hemisphere a Venezuela that's the crossroads for many of our adversaries around the world, including Iran and Hezbollah, is no longer sending us drug gangs, is no longer sending us drug boats, is no longer a narco-trafficking paradise for all those drugs coming out of Colombia to going through the Caribbean and towards the United States. And obviously, we want a better future for the people of Venezuela. We want them to have an oil industry where the wealth goes to the people, not to a handful of corrupt individuals and stolen by, pirates all over the world. That's what we're working towards, and we intend to use the leverage we have to help achieve that.
Let me ask the question again. What is the legal authority for the United States to be running Venezuela?
Well, I explained to you what our goals are and how we're going to use the leverage to make it happen. As far as what our legal authority is on the quarantine, I'm very simple. We have court orders. These are sanctioned boats, and we get orders from courts to go after and seize these sanctions. So I don't know, is a court not a legal authority?
So is the United States running Venezuela right now?
Well, I've explained once again, I'll do it one more time. What we are running is the direction that this is going to moving forward. And that is, we have leverage. This leverage we are using and we intend to use. We started.
So one of the things that's really interesting is that the United States government's official position is that the president of the United States cannot be prosecuted while he's president, because what the president does is not illegal. Basically, that's the conservative idea. However, the United States of America is going to use its military to enforce its laws on foreign heads of state. What would the U.S.'s principal objection be to, say, for example, Xi Jinping kidnapping Benjamin Netanyahu and prosecuting him for the crime of genocide in Chinese courts? I mean, Benjamin Netanyahu is facing criminal corruption charges, but they're in abeyance while he serves as prime minister because there is executive immunity in Israel. So can we just kidnap Netanyahu out of Israel, out of Tel Aviv, and then prosecute him under Chinese authority? That's the standard. The standard is if you can do it, it's okay. As long as your country's laws say it's okay to do. That's the position of the United States.
Using already. You can see where they are running out of storage capacity. In a few weeks, they're going to have to start pumping oil unless they make changes. And that leverage that we have with the armada of boats that are currently positioned allow us to seize any sanctioned boats coming into or out of Venezuela, loaded with oil or on its way in to pick up oil, and we can pick and choose which ones we go after. We have court orders for each one. That will continue to be in place until the people who have control over the levers of power in that country make changes that are not just in the interest of the people of Venezuela, but are in the interest of the United States and the things that we care about. That's what we intend to do. The legal authority is the court orders that we have.
When the president was asked yesterday who will be running Venezuela, he said it was you, he said it was the defense secretary, he said it was the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Are you running Venezuela right now?
George, I've explained again that the leverage that we have here is the leverage of the quarantine. So that is a Department of War operation, conducting, in some cases, law enforcement functions with the Coast Guard on the seizure of these boats. I'm obviously very intricately involved in these policies. And by the way, very intricately involved in moving forward and what we hope to see some of these changes being addressed. Unfortunately, the person that was there before, who was not the legitimate president of the country, was someone we could not work with, was someone that we could not. He had already suckered the Biden administration a couple of years ago on a deal he didn't keep. And this is someone we simply couldn't work with. We are hopeful that there are people in place now. We're going to find out. The proof will be in what they do or fail to do, that will start making some of these changes that will ultimately lead to a Venezuela that looks substantially and dramatically different from what's been in place for 15 years. But our number one objective is America. We care about Venezuela. We want it to do well moving forward. But our number one objective here is America. No more drugs, no more Train de Agua gangs coming our direction, and no more an area of the country in our hemisphere that becomes a crossroads for every single adversary we have around the world. Hezbollah, Iran, all of them have turned it into the playground.
The Democrats voted for this man to be Secretary of State nearly unanimously. All right, Chad, I'm going to call it there today. Thank you so much for all the support. Here's all my links. I'm going to call it there today. We'll be back tomorrow. Hope you enjoyed the content. We'll be covering this stuff more. We still don't really know what's going on. Maduro has just come out as I'm ending the stream, chat. Maduro is saying that he was kidnapped and pleading not guilty. Maduro tells U.S. judge he was kidnapped. Nicolas Maduro, the ousted Venezuelan leader, and his wife pleaded not guilty to drug trafficking and other federal charges. I am still president of my country, Maduro said. Nicolas Maduro, the ousted Venezuelan leader, insisted on Monday he was still... By the way, he's not ousted. And what way is he ousted? He was just kidnapped by U.S. forces. I didn't see any official Venezuelan declaration of him in abeyance or for him being removed. He's just been kidnapped. Like, if Donald Trump got kidnapped, would that mean that he's not president anymore? Or it just means that he is detained? And, like, what the fuck? He wasn't ousted. He was kidnapped. He and his wife pleaded not guilty. I am innocent. I'm not guilty. I'm a decent man, and I am still president of my country. All right, everybody. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll be covering more of the ramifications of this idiotic move. I'll see you tomorrow. Free Palestine. Stay safe. Say hi to VO.